Good morning. Take two. Good morning, everyone. Zach is not feeling the greatest today. So
Glenn had our levels way off over here. We were all the way around. So now we're fixed.
You're way too loud.
I am
You
loud.
are way too loud.
The
music's too loud. Let's turn that down a little bit.
We're getting there.
Good morning.
We're getting there.
We're here. We're live on the Bet Around on a overcast but nice Saturday morning here in the Towson, Baltimore, Maryland area. I'm Paul. He's Zach. This is the Bet Around. Zach is not feeling well today, so he's going to be not talking as much, thank God. But we are here. Today's show brought to you by Chick-fil-A and Toys for Tots. Baltimore area Chick-fil-A restaurants invite you to support Toys for Tots on Saturday, November 12th. Donate a new toy at any of the 13 Stuff the Truck locations and receive a free sandwich offer card as a thank you. For more information, please visit PressBoxOnline.com/toy-drive. I may have some old toys from when I was a kid that I held on for nostalgia. I may be willing to trade those in for a Chick-fil-A sandwich. I do love me some Chick-fil-A, although I am on a meatless kick.
I was about to mention that.
I'm on a meatless kick. I am 3 weeks in to no meat. I've added seafood, and when I say seafood, I've had shrimp twice in the last week.
I made an attempt at salmon last night. It went okay. Let's say
an attempt in that you ate it for the first time. You tried to cook it.
No. I tried to cook it, and it went interesting. It was fine. It ended up tasting okay. I think like a good fifth of it. If we break it into fifths, a fifth of it was still raw because I didn't cook it correctly. But I ate like a fourth of it.
Salmon you can still eat fairly raw. Get yourself a George Foreman grill. Season the.
I gotta get myself a Ginsu grill. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah. That's right. Get yourself a Ginsu grill. And all you got to do is season up that raw salmon with lemon and pepper, with the lemon pepper seasoning. And then grill it on both sides for a couple minutes, you're good to go. Mm-hmm. You're raw as rain. So, all right, welcome to the Bet Around. Ramon Arias, we'll kick things off with him. He wins a Gold Glove at third base. Just the third Orioles third baseman ever to win the Gold Glove, joining Brooks Robinson with his 16 and Manny Machado with his 2. Ramon only played 98 games at third base, logged just under 770 innings, but he had 14 defensive runs saved. Zach wins a Gold Glove over there. Not a ton of games, not a ton of innings in there, but he was clearly the best defensive third baseman in the American League.
Yeah, no doubt. He's someone where I think before the season started, we all kind of were questioning where's he going to play. We think the bat was going to play, and I would say the bat for the most part did. But there was always the question of, what infield spot is he going to play at? Because he came up as a second baseman shortstop more of than a third baseman. So it was something that was a little more unproven. We didn't know if the arm strength was there, and not that factors into Gold Glove as much as actually just being able, to pick a ball and be able to catch a ball.
You got to be able to make the throw.
But you do have to be able to make the throw, and he did. He was consistent all year. He made the throws he had to. I thought he looked really good over there, and he solidified himself a position where I'm not sure they can move him off it at this point.
They're going to have to.
They're going to have to. But Gunnar Henderson, if you factor Jorge Mateo not playing as a starter as much, you can throw Gunnar Henderson at short or second, and it makes a lot of sense.
Gunnar is not playing second base.
I don't think so.
I think
but they did try him.
They tried him there, but I think we saw that experiment, and it did not work out. A couple of they didn't go down as errors, but a couple of bobbles in that first game of that doubleheader on Labor Day that ended up costing the Orioles the game, because a couple runs scored. They lost that game, I think, by 1 or 2 runs.
Right. I'm willing to cut him some slack there, though.
Yeah. I mean, if he spends all offseason working at it, but then what are you going to do with your minor league player of the year, Jordan Westberg, or Connor Norby, who hit 29 home runs this year? You've got some question marks there. We're going to talk about that later in the show on Orioles Banter from the Locked On Orioles Podcast. Connor Newcomb is going to join us at around 11:30 for Orioles Banter to discuss that and more things about the Orioles as the World Series is coming to a close. Arias, it's funny, man, because I was sitting down the third baseline on the opening day. And so when I say down the third baseline, I was closer to the left field corner. But we were in the front row. My dad and I have a direct angle behind Ramon Arias playing third base. And 2 consecutive throws during infield warm-ups while the pitcher was warming up, he bounced the throw to first base. And I was like, oh, my God, he can't make the throw. And then he bounced a couple in the game. And we saw that routinely to start the year. And then little by little, the arm strength gets better, gets better, gets better. And that's a credit, I think, to, I believe Tony Manzolino is a new infield instructor, right? That's a credit to Tony Manzolino for working with him and getting that, helping him find that correct arm slot to play third base. Because honestly, if you play second base or shortstop your entire life, even though you have to make a deep throw from shortstop, it's a consistently different arm slot.
It is.
Playing third base. You played third base growing up, didn't you?
As a lefty, a little bit, yeah.
Oh, that's right. You're a lefty.
I'm a lefty,
you're
but
one of those
I was
walking weird
I was
people.
on some rec teams where nobody else could make the play, so I was there.
Okay. All right. The stalwart defensive standout.
Yeah.
Zach Goodman.
That's about all I could
The
do.
lefty third baseman might as well be a Mark Parent, left-handed catcher behind the plate.
It works a lot better than left-handed shortstop, I'll tell you that.
I'm sure
Because I did both.
I'm sure. Oh, wow. Cedric Mullins was a finalist in center field. He did not win. Miles Straw won. Look, Miles Straw is the best center fielder in the American League. Not the greatest hitter. Probably the worst everyday player offensively. But he wins the Gold Glove. Cedric Mullins, at least he was represented there. Jorge Mateo, the big snub. The biggest snub of all the Gold Gloves. He wasn't even a finalist, and he was clearly by far and away the best defensive shortstop.
Still can't get upset about it.
In all of baseball, and wins the Fielding Bible Award for best defensive shortstop in all of baseball. Not a finalist in the American League. But Jeremy Pena made over 20 errors, but he's a rookie. He's got a good bat. He's replacing Carlos Correa, so he's in the spotlight, and he's playing in the World Series, might win World Series MVP. He wins the Gold Glove. But they were voted on before the postseason. So.
I was going to say, just watching this World Series, I know we're going to get there in a second, but Jeremy Pena is every bit deserving of every accolade he's going to get over these next few years because that kid is a stud.
Yeah, he is.
That kid is a stud.
He is. Speaking of studs, Orioles agreed to a one-year deal with Jake Cave.
Known stud, Jake Cave.
Split contract, so his salary is determined by whether he's in the majors or the minors. It's not like he signs a one-year, $1.2 million deal, and whether he's in Baltimore or AAA, he gets that money. It's all dependent on where he is for how much he makes. But they avoid arbitration with him. The Orioles, when they announced that roster move, also announced the roster moves were Chris Ellis and Aramis Garcia. Both refused their outright assignments to AAA Norfolk, and they both have elected free agency. Chris Ellis in 2021, he pitched well for the Orioles. The peripherals weren't great, but he had a sub-4 ERA in 7 starts. He pitched well with Tampa Bay before that. Had the injury this year, never pitched at the big league level. And so now he was outrighted, refused it. He's a free agent. There wasn't a spot for him. He was a depth piece. He was going to be somebody who might pitch at AAA for you, and if you need a spot start, but I doubt that was even going to happen because the Orioles have so many candidates for the starting rotation and for the bullpen. Aramis Garcia is a little bit more troubling. He's a backup catcher, not a great offensive player, but he's really good defensively, and he's one of the better pitch framers in baseball. So with the fact that the Orioles don't have a backup catcher on that. Technically, they do, Robinson Chirinos, but that's only because the World Series isn't over. The second it ends, he becomes a free agent. The Orioles aren't going to re-sign him.
Right.
If they, I'm not going to say they aren't.
I doubt it.
Brandon Hyde loves Robinson Chirinos. I don't know how much Mike Elias does, but Brandon Hyde loves Robinson Chirinos. So I'm not going to say that they aren't going to sign Chirinos, but I'm not betting my money on it. Garcia could have been in a competition that could have been as many as 6 catchers deep for the backup positions. They still may go out and sign a backup, maybe a Sandy Leon or Tucker Barnhart, but we will see how that comes in the coming days, weeks, and months. So Chris Ellis and Aramis Garcia both electing free agency rather than accepting their outright assignments to AAA Norfolk. Now we get to the World Series. Phillies, they lose games 4 and 5 at home after winning game 3 there, 7-0. Bryce Harper with a moonshot in the first inning. Phillies touched up Lance McCullers Jr. for 5 home runs. Do you think he was tipping pitches?
I was trying to look for it because I saw people on Twitter saying that, and when I was watching the game, I didn't really notice that. I didn't see anything that was like crazy out of the normal, or out of the ordinary, I guess.
A lot of people pointed out the leg kick. That was it was different on the fastball than it was on the off-speed stuff.
That's possible. It could have also been he showing too much of the ball in the windup or the delivery. I don't know what it was, but it definitely, they were teeing off on him, so something was awry. Lance McCullers is a really good pitcher and has been for a long time. I don't know if these guys necessarily would randomly change something like that, though, where the leg kick would all of a sudden be different, where it's been the same all season, and then he goes with a different one.
Well, but he didn't pitch much. He only pitched at the end of the year.
Right, he had some injury issues for sure all year.
He hadn't. I think it was either one or no home runs allowed on this off-speed stuff.
It's fair
in the regular season. So crazy that they hit 5 home runs. And Bryce Harper, before Alec Boehm's home run, he called him over and he said, "Hey, I may have something."
I saw that because Harper struck out, I believe.
No, Harper hit a 2-run homer.
Was that I feel like the at-bat where he was telling Boehm what was coming was an at-bat where he struck out. I could be wrong.
It was the next inning because and Harper didn't strike out against McCullers.
I might be thinking about a different game. That's possible.
So Harper hit the 2-run homer in the first inning on the first pitch he saw, which was a breaking ball, right? And then in his next at-bat, he walked, and then they brought in a reliever, and I believe it was Ryan Stanek, and he struck out against him.
Okay, that's probably what I mean.
But when Boehm came up, I believe it was the second inning, Harper, when he was waiting on deck, he called him over and said, "I think I may have something." He pointed something out, and then he goes deep. 5 home runs off of Lance McCullers, all off of all speed stuff. You have to think there was something that they were seeing.
Yeah, I mean, Lance McCullers, again, good pitcher. Hasn't thrown a lot this year, but I have to think something was a little off.
Yeah.
Maybe the pressure got to him. That could be part of it.
It's weird because I'm not an Astros fan per se. I'm not rooting for them in this World Series.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'm rooting for anyone, really.
However, I'm definitely 100% rooting for the Phillies. Okay. 100%. I've given the reason before. My stepdad, my co-best man, blah, blah, blah. I like Lance McCullers. I may have been the only person outside of Houston and McCullers' parents that felt bad for him in that game. I didn't feel bad for the Astros overall. I'm glad they lost that game, especially because now they're up 3-2 and they would have won the series by now. I didn't feel bad for the Astros, but I felt bad for McCullers because he's pitching in the World Series and he's getting torched.
Yeah.
And there's nothing he could do about it. Like he couldn't do anything about it. And I've been there on the mound, and you feel so freaking helpless.
Same. Yep.
You're sitting there, and they're teeing off on you, and you're just like, I don't know how to throw a pitch to get these guys out now. I don't know what to do.
Coming from my experience of the same thing, then you feel like you throw a good pitch, and they're still teeing off on that. I remember in high school, I threw a fastball that was painted on the inside corner, low and in, and the dude hit a massive bomb off me. It was one of the farthest bombs I've ever given off my life, and it was wild because I thought I threw a good pitch, but clearly there was something I was doing that was telling them, what was coming next.
And the other thing is, if you're throwing, if you're getting teed off on, and then say that you throw a really good pitch and you spot it and you don't get the call,
right?
And then you're like, what else can I do? I'm not gonna like. I've had plenty of times where an umpire was squeezing me, forcing me to throw the ball down the middle of the plate, and that's when I started getting teed off on. It's like I can't put it anywhere because you're not calling these. But I digress. It was I've been saying I digress a lot. I gotta get away.
It's the first time the show. It's okay.
Second time
this
show.
All right.
In like the last 5 minutes. But so anyway, so the Phillies lose games 4 and 5 at home. Game 4, they were no-hit. It was a combined no-hitter. Zach, I got to be honest, even in the World Series, and I know that it's history. I know it's only the second no-hitter in World Series history. It did. So my wife gave me crap on Twitter.
I saw this.
She gave me crap on Twitter because as it's happening, it's the top of the 9th inning, and she's like, "All right, babe, I'm going to bed." I was like, "What?
How dare you?"
I was like, "It's the 9th inning of a no-hitter in the World Series." She goes, okay. And my wife's a sports fan. It's just she was going to bed. She had to work the next morning. She was tired, and she had had a 14-hour day that day. So I understand why she was going to bed. And so I stayed up, and I started falling asleep in the top of the 9th inning. I didn't. I watched it, and then I don't know if it's because it seemed to not matter to the Astros. The guy on first, the first baseman, Gurriel, he catches the final out on the throw from Bregman, and he kind of just puts his hands in the air briefly and then claps, and then they go and they do their normal "we just won" celebration,
right?
Slapping, giving high fives in the line or on the pitcher's mound, and they said that they were going to celebrate the no-hitter accordingly after they win the World Series. Well, what if they don't win one and hey, remember that no-hitter? That was cool. Combined no-hitters do absolutely nothing for me. They do nothing for me. If a person does, if one pitcher does it, that's an achievement.
Yeah.
If a team does it, I don't care. That's why when they talk about the Orioles combined no-hitter against the Oakland Athletics back in 1990 or 1991, 5 pitchers. I don't care.
Right.
That doesn't count to me. John Means no-hitter, that's legitimate. He's a drop third strike away from a perfect game. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Combined no-hitter, even in the World Series, I don't care.
I'll tell you what a combined no-hitter is. It's a fancy shutout.
Yeah.
It's a fancy shutout.
All it was a shutout.
Yeah.
All it was a shutout. Now, the cool thing is, the next game, first batter for the Phillies in the first inning, Kyle Schwarber launches a leadoff home run. So kind of like, hey, this ain't happening again. The problem is they didn't score again until the 8th inning.
Yeah.
And they had the tying.
It did happen again.
Right.
Not in the same way, but.
They had the tying run on base. I think they had the tying and go-ahead runs on base.
Yeah.
Well, it was bases loaded, wasn't it?
I think there was runners in the corners.
Okay.
I thought, but I could be wrong.
And Schwarber comes up and he scorches a ground ball down the first baseline.
Mancini.
Where Trey Mancini was playing, he was holding the bag. The ball was hit so hard. The only thing he had time to do was put his glove down. He literally put his glove down and the ball landed in it. I'm not saying that he didn't make a great play and that he isn't deserving the accolades of making a great play, but it was literally a knee-jerk reaction and he caught the ball.
Right. It hit him in the palm, too.
Right. And so he stepped on the bag, and they get the out, right? And it ends the inning. And we're going to get to Trey in a second. In the 9th inning, 1 out, JT Realmuto crushes a ball to right center field. Chas McCormick, lifelong Phillies fan, charging after the ball, leaps at the wall and makes the catch of the year.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this wasn't just one of those, you know how somebody will like run back to a wall and they like jump 6 inches off the ground and catch the ball. Like, oh, let me catch. It's like, no, he just, whatever.
Yeah.
This was full vertical, full arms stretched out, catches the ball, slams into the wall, hits the ground, robbing Realmuto of a double, likely a triple, because if that ball hits off the wall, it bounces away.
Yeah.
Robs him of likely a triple. Harper gets hit by a pitch the next at bat. And then Castellanos comes up, gets it to a 3-2 count, and ends up grounding out to short to end the game. We'll get to that in a second. This catch, have you seen a greater catch in such a significant moment in the World Series in your life?
I haven't seen a lot of them. I think it makes it even more significant when you consider the wall that he did it on. Because a lot of guys would probably immediately resort to catching that ball off the wall. They're not going to give up their body like Chas McCormick did. I mean, you look at any of the really popular catches that have happened over the past few years. Look at Cedric Mullins' catch or Austin Hayes' if you want to look at Orioles. And they're really only half of their bodies hitting the wall. And not so much even hitting because they're really just jumping. And it's not something that's going to be super painful. This is one where he really smashed his entire body into the wall. He gave up his body to make the catch. I think that makes it a lot more impressive. And that's something that, as a player, you know, when you're running back there, when you know you're going to run into that wall and it's going to hurt a lot. And he gave up his body and he did it. And I have to give him a lot of credit for that. That was an excellent catch. Top tier.
Oh, it was, you're watching it, and I'm wanting the Phillies to come back. I'm wanting them to win. He hit it, and I'm like, oh, my God, and then he makes a catch, and I couldn't even be mad.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
He's from Westchester, PA, which is not too far from here, and I think he went to Millersville, which was a D2, I believe. So that's pretty cool.
I played with a guy who went to Millersville.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
I played with a guy at Harvard Community College who ended up going to Millersville.
Yep.
So very cool. Yeah, it was an absolutely incredible catch. Now, we get back to that 8th inning, right? First and third, 1 out. You're down 3-2. Brandon Marsh, who's had a nice postseason. He had some moments.
Yeah.
Strikes out.
I'm a big Brandon Marsh guy.
I like Brandon Marsh. Stan Darsh. Have you ever seen that South Park episode?
I haven't.
From South Park. Check it out.
I kind of figured with the voice you were doing.
Check out Stan Darsh. You'll get what I'm saying. You can't strike out there. You've got to put a ball in play. With your speed, if you hit a ball into the hole, they're not going to turn over play on you. That tying run's going to score. Hit a fly ball. Yeah. Now you have Schwarber up, and Schwarber is a big all-or-nothing guy. Now he's having a nice World Series. He's been hot the last 10 games or so in the postseason after an 0-for-17 start. And he hits the ball hard, but Mancini makes a great play. Now the inning's over. We saw that a lot with the Orioles this year. You've got to find a way to put a ball in play with the tying or go-ahead run on third base. You just have to. And the fact that he didn't, that stunk for the Phillies. And it honestly cost them the game. That strikeout was probably the biggest offensive blunder. And it's not a blunder because strikeouts happen, but it's probably the biggest. You look back on it and you're like, oh, man, if only he had put a ball in play there, right?
I'll tell you what, with that at bat, he didn't swing at a lot of strikes.
Yeah.
The ball he struck out on, I believe, was like a 12-6 curve in the dirt. So that's kind of a problem.
Well, and the other thing is, I believe that they had just walked. That wasn't it. I think it was Alec Boehm. Harper had just walked. Then Boehm comes up, or Harper walked, Castellanos got out, and then Bohm comes up and he swung at the guy. It was Stanek, I believe. No, it was Montero. And
it was Montero.
He was struggling to throw strikes,
Yep.
and Bohm just chased the entire bat, ends up striking out, and then he walks Stott as the next batter, and that costs him that costs him offensively too, because you have a guy who's struggling to throw strikes. You're helping him out. You strike out. He walks the sandwich guys around you. You put yourself in a tough situation there. In the ninth inning with Harper on first base, it's a 3-2 count. Castellanos, man, just really tough season for him. It signs a big 5-year, $100 and some odd $million. He's making over $20 million a year. Hit over 300 with over 30 home runs last year. Comes in 2022 and he hits 250 with like 11 home runs, and he really hasn't endeared himself to Phillies fans.
Yeah,
he comes up in with the tying run on first base, 2 outs, and it's a 3-2 count. This is his opportunity to drive a ball down the line, drive a ball in the gap. Harper's going to score from first.
Yeah.
It's your opportunity to erase the entire season and just build the allure around you in Phillies fans' minds. 3-2 count, Harper's off on the pitch, and he grounds out weakly the shortstop.
Yeah.
It's just Castellanos has a long road to hoe to get back into the good graces of the Phillies fans, if you ask me. He hasn't had a good postseason. He's had some moments. He's had some nice catches.
Yeah.
The catch was big. He's got a lot of work to do, in my opinion, to get into the good graces of these Phillies fans after the year he had in his first season in Philadelphia. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's why you see the Phillies as an 86-win team rather than a 100 or 105-win team. Because obviously you look at their lineup and it's just not as strong as some of the other teams around them, because guys like Castellanos and guys like Brandon Marsh have struggled in the bigger spots.
And Gene Segura wasn't the hitter he used to be.
Gene Segura, I was just thinking this when I was watching the World Series these past few days. One of the weirdest defenders you've ever seen. I know it's completely off topic, but that guy, he throws every ball to first base like he's trying to throw it as hard as he possibly can. And he's so weird with the glove. Like every movement he makes, just a weird defender. I don't know why I noticed that. Gene Segura is a very odd player, but I actually like him a lot.
Do you see the face he makes when he's batting?
Yeah, it's great.
It's like he's sucking on his own tongue.
Yeah,
right?
He's interesting. Yeah.
Well, if you could see me on camera, it's like he's got his tongue hanging out of his mouth between his lips, and while he's batting. Anyway.
Yeah, I know. I think Gene Segura is one of the more interesting players in Major League Baseball. And when I watch him play defense, it always just makes me laugh. But yeah, I think there are some weaker spots like Brandon Marsh and Nick Castellanos, who Castellanos is a really good hitter when he's on. I've said a lot. He reminds me of J.D. Martinez in a lot of ways because the guy can do everything at the plate. But yeah,
Castellanos hits a deep drive to left field, and that'll be a home run.
We just need something bad to happen. Then Castellanos will do something good. That's usually how it works for him. But yeah, he had to come up in that spot, and he's a middle of the order bat who has to be that middle of the order bat for them.
And I really think, so they were talking about it on the broadcast, and I agree with this. I think John Smoltz said it. He's going to have a big year next year.
He probably will.
I really firmly believe, because here's the thing. They have the lockout, right? You can't work out with your trainers. You have to find new trainers. You can't work out with anybody affiliated with Major League Baseball during the lockout. Doesn't sign with the Phillies until mid-March.
Yeah.
And at this point, you have to join a new team, get a ramp up, get familiarized and everything like that. Gets off to a slow start, never picked it back up. I expect him to work.
Right.
All off season. I expect him to work with his trainers, with the team, be in the batting. He'll probably take a month off and then be right back in the batting cages come January 1st. He'll probably take off the time for the holidays, and then late December, early January, he'll be right back in it, getting after it. And I fully expect him to come back and be closer to that 300 hitter with 30 home runs. Yeah. And if Castellanos is on for the Phillies next year, look out.
It's a difference maker.
Oh,
he's the middle of the order bat that they have middle of the order bats right now. Obviously, Bryce Harper is probably the best one there is. But one other guy in there, if you have Kyle Schwarber leading off, like they have done a lot in this World Series so far, and then you have maybe Bryson Stott takes the next step and Alec Boehm takes the next step, that's a dangerous lineup.
Brandon Marsh takes the next step.
Brandon Marsh, I mean, he's still only, 25, 26 years old?
He's not even. He's 24.
Yeah.
He was drafted out of high school in the second round.
You're right. And he made it to the majors very quickly for a guy like that.
He's a good player. And he's only going to get better.
He's a five-tool talent, and that's why I was kind of confused when I believe it was the Angels gave up on him, and he's now a Philly.
Were you confused confused that the Angels gave up on him?
Maybe not.
It's
Maybe
the
not.
Angels.
They know a thing or two about good outfielders. I'll say that. I mean, you've
and they don't know a thing or two about anything else.
No, that's
they
that's
know
right.
a thing or two about good outfielders,
two-way players,
and really long bad contracts.
That's true. That's true.
C.J. Wilson, Josh Hamilton, Albert Pujols. The list goes on.
But you've seen, to be fair, you've seen two guys come over from the Angels, and Noah Syndergaard and Brandon Marsh, two guys that have not played exceptionally in this World Series. I mean, Noah Syndergaard's start the other day wasn't anything to write home about.
I mean, they've been having him go 3 innings, and they had him go 5 in that. I think he went 5 in that game.
That's fair.
I don't know. I still believe in Syndergaard, but
I do too. Absolutely. And I think he's going to be a coveted free agent. I really do.
Tonight, Zach Wheeler versus Valdez.
Yep.
Does the series end tonight in Houston?
Zach Wheeler's been great, and Zach Wheeler
not his last start.
Not his last start, but during the playoffs, I thought Zach Wheeler looked like Zach Wheeler in a lot of situations. Zach Wheeler is, if you look at the numbers, I said this last show, is one of the best pitchers in baseball, but he doesn't get a lot of credit for some reason. I think because he's behind, Aaron Nola a little bit. Nola takes more of the spotlight, but Zach Wheeler's really good. I think he's going to give them the win tonight. I think Zach Wheeler's taking it to Game 7.
I would love. Ravens don't play tomorrow.
Right.
You have the Arizona Fall League All-Star game at 4:00, and then 8:00 Game 7.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm excited about the Arizona Fall League is because Heston Kjerstad is one of the better. We're going to talk about him in Orioles Banter today too, because question marks about him, but we'll talk about that later. But he's in that All-Star game. He's in the Home Run Derby tonight. But there's nothing better than Game 7 of the World Series.
No.
Nothing freaking better. Off season begins Monday at the latest. Free agency is early as Thursday, but no later than Friday. And then we can really get our hands dirty, man. We can really, literally next week's show is going to be all Orioles off-season outlook.
Yep.
So it's going to be exciting. I'm already feeling the heart palpitations. I'm getting excited about it. I do want to talk about Trey Mancini. We've got to get Stan on the line. So that's going to be the first thing we cover with Stan once we get him on the line. I want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by PressBox and FanDuel. Online sports betting will be starting in Maryland in the next few weeks. PressBox is your source for the best offers and sign-up incentives. Starting now, you can get a $100 pre-registration credit from our friends at FanDuel by going to PressBoxOnline.com/offers. The $100 credit is in addition to the new user promo you will get when they go live. Just go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers now to get your $100 FanDuel pre-registration bonus credit. That's PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Joining us now on the show for his weekly segment, he is Stan the Fan Charles, and he's live on the Bet Around. Stan, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing, guys?
Doing really, really well. Hoping for a Game 7 tomorrow night, but they got to get through Game 6 tonight. Stan, we were going to talk about this in the intro. We didn't have a chance to get to it. It is in my notes, but not at the top. But we're going to start here. Trey Mancini having a dreadful World Series, an even worse postseason. 0-for-6 in the World Series, 0-for-18 in the playoffs. He's pinch hit with Elizabeth Diaz in Game 3 with the tying and winning runs on base the other day. Makes a huge play at first to save the game in the bottom of the 8th inning in Game 4. But what's going on with Trey? Is this kind of the hitter that he is? You think he's pressing? What's going on with Trey, and what does the future hold for him after this World Series ends?
Well, it's certainly an inopportune time. He really he arrived in Houston and immediately hit a couple home runs in the first few games, and looked like he was well worth their acquisition of him, and their plans were for him to be an impact bat in our lineup. And I'll tell you, as much as we look at Alvarez and Tucker and Bregman as the big three, that lineup it isn't quite what it's made out to be. But I'll tell you what, I know you're asking me about Mancini. Pena has been really the star of this World Series. I mean, he has been absolutely fantastic throughout the whole postseason. Getting back to Trey, he was acquired to be a big bat, and he's failed miserably. It's not the first time in his career he's going to fail miserably, but he hung in there, and his mind was on what it was supposed to be on the other night when Gurriel got hurt, and he played. He made a terrific play there at first base.
Yeah, it saved the game because if that ball gets to the outfield, they may win that baseball game. That may be a 2-run double for Schwarber.
Yeah, my biggest problem with that inning, that was the play that ended the bottom of the 8th inning.
Yes, sir. I think I know where you're going with this.
Was I can't believe the Phillies have that kind of payroll, and there wasn't a pinch hitter for Brandon Marsh. That was without a doubt, in my opinion, one of the most predictable spots for a pinch hitter. And don't get me wrong, I love the acquisition of Marsh by the Phillies, but if you're looking at a guy that you needed to make contact to get the ball in the outfield, he was the wrong guy at the wrong time. And with 2 outs, that was just, that was the play before Schwarber's ground out. You know? Just absolutely horrible. But I will say this. I went back and I looked at the Phillies roster, and they've got Matt Vierling, who's he's probably better at putting the bat on the ball there against Presley. I mean, Presley's not easy. Let's be clear about that. But there was no, I'll lead you into something else. There was no Jake Cave there, a guy who you think could at least make some contact against a right-handed pitcher. That was one of the worst at-bats I've ever seen in a World Series.
Stan, I'll tell you, I'm glad you brought it up because Zach and I actually just spent a good bit of time in the introduction to the show talking about that and how that was arguably the biggest swing at-bat of the game because you have runners on first and third, you're down by a run, you've just gotten that second run home, and you have 1 out, and all you need Marsh to do, especially with his speed coming out of left-handed batter's box, is put a ball in play because it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to double him up. You hit a fly ball, you tie the game. You hit a ground ball someplace that's hit slow enough with his speed, you're not getting a double play, and he strikes out. It was the biggest at-bat of the game.
But they had Matt Vierling, they had that guy Edmundo Souza, and they got Garrett Stubbs. Stubbs may have actually been a better shot at getting bat on ball in there, but Marsh was like, to me, that was like an 80% chance he was going to strike out. That's Stan's analytics, Stan's calculus. But I sat there and I go, I can't believe they don't have somebody better than this. But the answer is they really didn't. With all that money they've got spent, they don't have anybody that comes up in that situation.
I think we just created a new segment on the show called Stanalytics. I think we
did. Stanalytics.
Stanalytics. I think we just came up with that.
That's like Jennifer Lopez with the goalie, those things that give her Genergy. Came up with Genergy.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Genergy.
Yeah.
All right.
Stanalytics.
Now, Stan, Nick Castillo.
But getting back to Mancini. Yeah. What does this do? It was an inopportune time. I think Trey Mancini is going to get a 1-year contract somewhere. And I see a place where he can fit here, but I don't know what their real thoughts are on, I know that Mike Elias deep down does not think that this is Trey Mancini. That's the kind of player he is. And he's going to have to battle back from it. But I could see him ending up in like a Tampa on a 1-year, like $6 million contract.
Tampa Bay, I think, would
like
be a perfect spot for Trey Mancini. If Trey Mancini came back here, and being realistic about it, he's going to have to come back and accept the fact that he's not going to be an everyday player. And if he becomes an everyday player, it's going to be because he played his way into it. That's just how it would have to be. So I think Tampa Bay is a great spot.
That's always more acceptable at another location. It always is.
Yeah. Now I want to talk a little bit, and I know he's not in the notes, but I want to talk a little bit about Nick Castellanos because Stan, he got paid big money to be a big-time bat in that lineup for the Phillies, and he just wasn't all season. Then you get to the postseason. He has a 3-2 count with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, tying run on first base. Bryce Harper off on the pitch, he grounds out weakly to shortstop. This was his opportunity to erase any bad will that he had gained for himself from Phillies fans by not performing this year, and he grounds out weakly to shortstop.
What did he do this year? I wasn't aware that he was that miserable.
He hit, he's normally a 300 hitter. I believe he hit close to 300 last year with over 30 home runs. This year, he just basically, I'm trying to find the stats. He hit something like 258 and I think he had less than
Right.
20 home runs. It just was not a good year
Right.
for Nick
Yeah.
Castellanos. Yeah, he hit 263, 13 home
Right.
runs, 27 doubles, 62 runs batted in, and he had a negative WAR, Stan. This is a year after he hits 309 with 34 home runs and 38
Yep.
doubles. And he drove in over 100. He
Yeah.
drove in 100 last year. Got paid all that money.
Yeah, they gave him big money. There's no question for that. No question on that.
I was saying to Zach, he's got a long road to hoe, I think, to endear himself to this Phillies fan base. Do you agree?
I haven't really given it much thought.
Sure.
I think right now they're in an embrace with the team. I think he's a real professional hitter.
I do too.
He would look awfully good. He would look awfully good in an Oriole uniform.
I agree. And
when we talk about Abreu, who they could go after. There's a couple other hitters I have in mind now that I think would make some sense for the Orioles.
Stan, is it a bad look that Nick Castellanos' wife went on Twitter and told Philly it basically sucks? Is that something you think is a bad look for him?
I wasn't aware of that she went on. That's not a real smart thing.
It wasn't great.
Did she just do that
This
during the World
was
Series?
12:44 last night. So
Oh man, he's probably getting a lot of hate.
she said, "Phillies fans taking swings at my family. You suck. Get a life." I mean, I agree with her
Well,
that
she's protecting
Yeah.
her man, and Philly fans will accept that. They'll accept that because they like toughness in Philadelphia, and that is, that's tough. Philly fans know deep down they know they suck, but they do bring their intensity. They're an intense fan base. I found it interesting that they were on playing the Houston Texans in football the same night.
Yeah.
that was
pretty wild.
and the Texans stayed in that game for the better part of 3 quarters.
Yeah, they covered the spread too.
There you go.
Lost
There you go.
Like 12. Yeah.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
think that Castellanos is going to come back next year and have a good year. I think he's gonna just everything was working against him with the lockout, joining a new team, not having a big ramp up in spring training. I think he'll bounce back
Right.
and that's going to be big for them if he has a big year. Now, Stan, we are 10 minutes into this segment and we have not talked about a World Series no-hitter. And I got to be honest, Stan, it was history. It's only the second time in World Series history that there's been a no-hitter, but it was combined.
Right.
And the Astros didn't seem to care about it. To me, it did nothing
Well,
for me.
wait a minute. What do you mean they didn't seem to care about it?
So when Gurriel,
You're questioning whether the right thing to do was to take Javier out.
No. He was at 97 pitches through 6 innings. You're not bringing him back
Right,
out. I don't question
if
that.
If anything else, you should have taken him out after 5 innings.
Well, right, and
If you really want him, sharp for a game 7 for a couple innings,
certainly no.
So-
I don't disagree with you. When I say
So I don't understand what you mean they didn't seem to care.
well, I'll explain. When Gurriel catches
Yeah.
the throw from Bregman at first base, he kind of throws his hands in the air, and then he just kind of gives a soft clap. They run out to the mound, and they do their normal victory celebration. They get in the line and do the high fives across the pitcher's mound. There's no dog pile, no jumping up and down, no big no-hitter celebration. And I don't know if that's why combined no-hitters never do much for me.
It's a no-hitter, but it's not, it's not an individual performance that they're going to salute the guy who threw the no-hitter. It's 4 guys that pitched it.
Right. And so it's not that they didn't care, but it's just it wasn't that big a deal. As big a deal as you would normally think it would be.
Well, it's not as big a deal. It's not as big a deal as winning the World Series, and they're a game
Correct.
closer to winning the World Series, and that's really what's on Dusty Baker's mind, and that should be on every player's mind. To celebrate there could have sent the wrong message. I just think their goal is to win a World Series, and the no-hitter was nice. As you say, it was there.
Yeah.
Just hung there,
Zach said it's just a fancy shutout is basically what it was.
Yep.
Now, Phillies bats have gone cold. Kyle Schwarber does his part the first inning of the next game, first batter in the bottom of the first, to not get no hit again, hits the leadoff home run, and then they don't score a run again until the 8th inning. The Phillies bats have gone ice cold. In your opinion, with Valdez going tonight, even though the Phillies are countering with Wheeler, is the series basically over at this point?
No, I don't think the series is over at all. I mean, Wheeler is certainly capable outdueling Framber Valdez, but there's not going to be a lot of wiggle room in this game. If he lets up more than 2 runs in this game in the first 6 innings, they're probably going to lose this baseball game and lose the series. But no, I don't think it's over. I think there's the potential there for drama. Look, I'm the guy that 3 weeks ago thought that the Yankees were going to come back and win the first 2 games in New York to tie that series.
Sure.
And I feel a little bit the same way. It was who the hell was going to pitch it even after they tied that, the Yankees. And I kind of feel that way now with the Phillies. Nola was disappointing in the World Series. There's no question about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stan,
it was disappointment, and that's probably the big difference in this series, is that he didn't pitch well enough to win either game.
Stan, do you expect both teams to kind of throw both starters out there and make them, give them their all essentially, and not have them on, any kind of pitch count, or do you expect maybe both of those guys to be saved for a possible Game 7?
No, I think these 2 guys go after it. I don't think either one of them come back for Game 7, even for a batter or 2. I just think they're going to give their all tonight. Look, if Wheeler somehow gets knocked out in the first, if Wheeler gets knocked out in the first inning, the series will probably be over.
Yeah.
But if Valdez would somehow just something get into trouble and have the bases loaded in the second inning, and he'd given up 1 or 2 runs in the first, would he be able to come up and face a Bryce Harper? Possibly. But I don't see either of these pitchers tonight. Now, because of Dusty Baker's, looking ahead, his taking Javier out the other night was the right move.
Yes. I
would have probably done it after 5 innings with a 5-0 lead in that bullpen. But he's been their best pitcher the last 2 months of the season. He hasn't had a blip on his radar screen. Valdez had a couple games, including that game in Baltimore. He had 2 games in a row in mid to late September that he wasn't Framber Valdez. So Phillies desperately need to put some runs up. 2-3 runs in the first 2 innings would really help Zach Wheeler a lot tonight.
Yeah, I look to Bryce Harper to be the difference maker in the game tonight if the Phillies hope to get this to a Game 7. Stan, I want to talk a little bit about Ramon Urias. He wins a Gold Glove over at third base. Did it while playing just 98 games over there, 769 in the third innings at the hot corner. He becomes just the third Orioles third baseman all time to win a Gold Glove, joining Brooks Robinson, who obviously won 16 of them, and Manny Machado, who won 2. Is it surprising that Ramon was able to win that Gold Glove despite playing such a few amount of games over there?
It's not the overall games. It's that award is such a reputation award that I would have guessed that Matt Chapman would have won it.
Or Jose Ramirez, right?
Yeah. Well, Ramirez he's a good fielder. To me, he's not great. Chapman is a real artist over at third base. So to break that spell of just sort of it being the same guy that won it the year before and all that, that's a big deal, especially if you're Ramon Urias.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal to win.
Yeah,
the Gold Glove.
It was a big deal that he was able to win it. I don't think they got it right as him being the most deserving of the Oriole defenders. I thought Mateo really deserved the award.
Mateo was the biggest Gold Glove snub in all baseball, not even being a finalist. Now, and that brings me to my next point, Stan. The Orioles have elite defense behind the plate, at third base, at shortstop, in center field. Mount Castle's not too shabby over there at first base. But then you have Gunnar Henderson, who's going to play on the left side of the infield more than likely, because I don't think he's playing second base for the Orioles next year. You have Jordan Westburg, who's the organizational minor league player of the year. He's an infielder likely to get a shot at second base. We've talked about this a lot in the past, but Urias, he wins a Gold Glove. You have Mateo, Gold Glove caliber at shortstop. The Orioles have a legitimate roster crunch on their hands. So if Stan the Fan Charles is the general manager of the Baltimore Orioles, how does he set his 2023 Orioles infield?
First of all, I guess Rougned Odor is out the door, and I think Jordan Westburg takes his place. I sort of laughed at Mike Elias when they signed Odor, but Odor was an important guy in that locker room this year. I think he showed them a little bit of how you win ball games and the toughness you need. So I applaud him on the way out the door. He could play on most teams, but when you're trying to really get the team back to what it needs to be, Westberg is going to beat him out. I would think that Westberg and Urias will play a lot of second base, and Henderson will play mostly at third base. And there'll be days where Urias moves back over to third base. I don't think Henderson's going to play second base either. And this presupposes that somehow they can't work it. Urias will probably never be worth more than he is right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's definitely a possibility of being a player that other teams, while maybe not covet, but they'd say, hey, this is a way we can get better. And somehow he's packaged together with a prospect and Austin Hayes or something like that, or him and Mullins go somewhere for a big-time pitcher,
Yeah,
so that's a possibility. Yeah,
I do think that either Mateo or Urias or both could be traded this offseason.
Yeah.
And if you trade Mateo, you move Gunnar the shortstop, and you have Urias playing third base every day. The bat plays enough.
Well, if you've traded, but you said you think him or both.
Either he, Mateo, or both. But I'm saying if you trade
Right.
Mateo and you hang on to Urias, you have Gunnar at shortstop.
Okay.
I think, you have Gunnar at shortstop, Urias at third, and Westberg at second.
Yeah.
And I think that gives you a really solid infield and decent hitting all the way around. It's certainly it's a good problem.
They've got value in their trade chips this year. I mean, it's not just bluffing, to say that some team wouldn't give you a nice pitcher for, say, Mullins and Urias or something like that.
Yeah, they've got a lot of ammo to work with this offseason for sure. One guy they don't have to worry about this offseason is Jake Cave. He agrees to a 1-year split contract, which means his salary is determined by whether he's in the majors or the minors. He avoids arbitration. Is Jake Cave, and you mentioned him, that the Phillies could have used a guy like him coming off the bench to pinch hit for Brandon Marsh in the World Series. Is he a legitimate candidate for the fourth outfield spot for the Orioles when you think about the fact that they have McKenna, who was there all year this past season? Hayes is there. They're probably going to have Colton Cowser at some point. Is he a legitimate fourth outfielder option?
I don't know that he's the fourth outfielder possibility, but he's a somebody there saw something with him and likes something about him. I've always been intrigued with him. I've owned him a couple times in fantasy baseball, but he doesn't play enough to really be that guy for you there. I see him more as a depth piece, but I think he does have a chance to make the team if they trade Mullins or Hayes. I think he has a chance to be on the opening roster, but he's clearly a depth piece. I think I won't say they're intrigued by him. They must see something in his splits that they really like. I looked at him last night, and I don't see it. Just doesn't jump out at me, even against right-handed pitching. He strikes out an awful lot, but his peripherals are okay. I mean, he had like a 735 OPS as a left-handed batter against right-handed pitching. So, it's an okay move. I'm not jumping up and down about it. I think he's a depth piece in the organization.
Well, I mean, if you combine his first 2 seasons in Minnesota, it's 163 games, and that's a 27 double, 21 home run guy there. But he hasn't put up the same. He hasn't replicated those numbers.
Yeah, he hasn't done that in about 4 years. Yeah.
So
last 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
So we'll see what he has to offer.
They see something in him. They didn't just. That's just not an accidental pickup. Oh, JK is available. They see something in him. Somebody there thinks they can unlock something with him. And I'm looking for that with the starting pitchers, is who they can find that they think they can unlock something extra.
Sure. And like you've mentioned Lucas Giolito a few times on the show about being a trade candidate to the Orioles and unlocking something there. So maybe that's something that they could look into. Stan, real quick.
The guy I really want is Luzardo from the Marlins.
Yeah.
That's who I think is really a stud.
They're shopping him.
I want to get this
rotation.
I want to get this rotation where we got at least 2 left-handers in it, and right now we don't have any, but we've got John Means who'll be back at mid-season.
Yeah.
We need to take advantage of that aspect of Elias's plan, which is to stack. That's the other thing. The ballpark factor with Cave. He certainly fits what they like with his left-handed power.
They definitely
in this ballpark.
They definitely want left-handed hitting in this organization. Now, before we let you go, Stan, do you think that this team is going to? I think they're going to prioritize a couple of things, but do you think that they go into the offseason looking to shore up the starting rotation first and foremost before they do anything else? Or you think it's just going to be what comes to us we're going to do? Doesn't matter when we do it.
You know what? And I'm not BSing you here. The pitching. When you look at what the real problem is on this team, they need better starting pitching. But what they really need is better production. They need to score more runs. And I'll tell you the 2 players that I'm suddenly honing in on offensively, to answer part of your question, is, when you think about, I remember hearing Brandon Hyde talk about Odor, and who did he talk to about Odor, what kind of teammate he is? He talked to a guy that he knows pretty well, which is Anthony Rizzo. Rizzo on a 2-year, $20 million a year contract for the Orioles in this ballpark, with the end of the shifting, he could be a really dynamic player for Baltimore Orioles.
I think he'd be a fan favorite. He's got that great personality that fans love.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a good fit here.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And then you have one other guy.
And the other player is, and we won't know whether he's actually going to be let go by his team until 5 days after the World Series. I don't think we're going to get Abreu. I think the price tags are going to go a little high on him. And also I think there are a little bit of age concerns with him. But Justin Turner would make a very interesting designated hitter on the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah, the one thing that concerns me there is that the power was down this year, and then you got that big wall out there, and he probably wants one more decent contract before he calls it quits. So I don't know that.
Yeah, and I don't know that he's going to get that many. The Dodgers have so much money that when you look at certain players like Andrew Heaney, Heaney is going to probably command, believe it or not, and I had him 2 years ago in fantasy, and he absolutely killed my chances to win the championship, and I finished in 3rd place.
Is that when he was with the Yankees?
Behind. That was he started the season with the Angels, and then he went to the Yankees.
Yeah.
But he came back, and he's got his numbers are really like his strikeouts. Like he strikes out 35% of the batters he faces. So but the Dodgers can pay him. They could sign him to a 2-year, $30 million contract just as insurance. That's the kind of money they have.
That's crazy.
So my point is, they may sign Turner just to say, you know what, he's going to cost us $14 million or $15 for 1 year. Let's keep Turner here, as a really hefty insurance policy.
You can make the argument he's more valuable to the Dodgers at this point than anybody else.
Yeah, but if he's a free agent, you talk about some of the things that Odor did with this team, teaching players how to win. I think he would have a really dynamite effect in that clubhouse, Justin Turner. So those are my 2 guys, Rizzo or Turner.
All right, I wouldn't hate either one of them being here for sure.
Yeah.
Stan, what do you have coming up this week?
They definitely need something in that lineup. There's no question about it.
We can all agree on that.
Got to have a lot more juice. Don't have Monday night's guest yet. We work on it late into the week. It's just a week's fly by, and then all of a sudden we're not scurrying, but we're looking. We've got Danny Black, who's a collectibles expert that does some stuff with us now, content-wise on Press Box. We're going to talk about some content stuff on Thursday night at 7. And the week after that, we've got the director of the Maryland Lottery and Sports Gaming, John Martin, will be on with us the next. Those are the next 2 Thursdays. And I'll also be having Joe Weinberg, who's one of the principals in Live Casino Hotel, talking about the sports betting that's on the doorstep right now.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to it. We will talk to you next week, and enjoy the rest of the World Series.
All right. Always a pleasure. Yep. I hope it goes 7.
Me too.
All right. Talk
See
to you later. Bye.
And that was Stan the Fan, Charles, who has 2 great shows for you every week. Every Monday night, Stan and former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley visit with a different guest from the world of baseball. And every Thursday night, Stan and Gary Stein chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. This week, Stan and Ross were joined by former Oriole-turned-Giants instructor Shane Turner, plus Stan and Gary caught up with Ravens Vault podcast host Sarah Ellison. Find these shows under the videos tab at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or at PressBoxOnline.com/video. Stan and Ross are back on Monday for another great show. Guest to be determined. And then as Stan just said, on Thursday night, he and Gary Stein will chat with Danny Black at 7 p.m., so you won't want to miss that. It is now time for Sounding Off with Zach Goodman. Today's Sounding Off segment is brought to you by the Toyota Tacoma. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Zach, what do you have for us?
So I think a lot of people probably saw this earlier this week, and I didn't actually. I'm not sure entirely what game this was at, but a fan went up to Rob Manfred at the World Series and basically walked up to him and started screaming at him that local blackouts should not exist. And this is something that I've talked about before on Sounding Off. I'm pretty against them. I don't really see a reason anymore. I don't see a logical reason that Major League Baseball should implement local blackouts. And what I mean by this is through MLB TV. Basically, the only service that you can actually stream baseball on. There's not many of them. I mean, you look at the NFL, and I personally have Hulu, so I can watch the NFL. I pay like $70 a month, and you can watch all the games and all TV. That's how you cut the cord and get away from cable, is you do something like that.
How do you watch MASN?
So I watch MASN. I usually when I'm home during the summer, we have cable, and that's basically one of the only ways. But there's other ways to get around it, but it's not easy. You certainly got to figure out. No, I don't usually get into that, but there's some other ways to get around it. Like you can with the service provider that we have in FiOS, you can actually watch it while you're not at home. So that's kind of the way I have to get around it a lot of times. But there's no easy way to watch baseball, and that's kind of one of the main points I'm trying to make here. And Major League Baseball basically gives you one option. It's MLB TV. But if you're in the local area that your team is, like we're in Baltimore, so we can't watch the Orioles on MLB TV. And that's never made a lot of sense to me because I'm personally, if I'm going to get MLB TV, it's going to be to watch the team that's in my market. And I think 95% of people who buy MLB TV or would want to buy MLB TV is because they want to watch the teams in their market. And there are some people who like to watch other teams, but for me, local blackouts, I don't know the reasoning behind it. I've never understood it. And they want to make the cable providers probably number one money, and number two, they probably get more money if they don't implement these. If they do implement these local blackouts,
here's
it's a money thing. It's got to be.
It's 100% a money thing. But what it comes down to is a lot of these teams, like the Orioles, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox,
they have their own networks.
They have regional sports networks, and the regional sports networks aren't going to make money if Major League Baseball doesn't black out local games. Now, the way that Major League Baseball gets around it is they're going to have to spend money, and Major League Baseball is going to have to pay these regional sports networks to broadcast their games on MLB TV. Now, I don't know what that sum's going to be, but it would be millions of dollars to each team that you want to Major League Baseball can afford it, but everything's about money. They're not going to do that.
We can figure this out financially. Like
that's the way you figure it out.
I don't think there should be a financial barrier here. And I know it's a money thing. I mean, I know that's why the blackout restrictions are in place. But first of all, Major League Baseball, you look at their revenue, and it's great. I mean, they're making billions and billions of dollars every year, and every team,
tens of billions of
dollars, and every team is making a profit for the most part now. During COVID, that wasn't true. But they're going to make more profit if you let the teams broadcast their games on MLB TV within the local market. It makes sense.
And again, though, it's not really Major League Baseball's call because of these regional sports networks. You can get mad at the regional sports network. You can get mad at MASN for not letting you stream MASN on your phone unless you have a cable provider, and then not being attached to all the cable providers that are in their region. Major League Baseball, the best way that they can do it is pay these regional networks to broadcast their games on MLB TV. But again, you're going to have to spend millions of dollars on each team that has a regional sports network to broadcast their games. Yeah. And again, we know what just happened with this lockout, with the owners, digging their heels in. That's not likely to happen.
Right.
It's all about money, and people can bitch and moan about all they want. And Rob Manfred's not going to come out and say we would have to pay millions of dollars to each team that has a regional sports network, but that's what it comes down to.
No doubt, you're right.
That's what it comes down to.
No doubt. I'm just not a fan of it.
No, and we all are. And I used to be with T-Mobile, and I got free MLB TV every year, and by buying an Orioles season. If you buy an Orioles season ticket plan, you get free MLB TV. Yep. I'm just throwing that out there. This year, I moved to Verizon, and I still got free MLB TV because I got a 13-game plan with the Orioles. So, but I wouldn't buy it otherwise because I have no reason to. Because I watch the Orioles games on mass, and they would get a lot more subscribers that would probably make up for that money if they paid the teams.
That's what I'm saying.
To broadcast the games. But that's telling them to spend money without a guarantee that they're going to make money. But they always make money. They're Major League Baseball. Good segment. All right, we got to catch our first break. Today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. The ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Got to catch a break. When we come back from the AT&T Sports Net, he covers the Houston Astros as their play-by-play man. He is Todd Kalas, and he's next on the Bet Around.
Glory Days Grill's Oktoberfest menu is now running. It's one of their most popular seasonal menus all year. It features the chicken schnitzel, the Oktoberfest brewer's platter, the brewer's sausage sandwich, the Bavarian burger with a pretzel bun, the cheddar ale soup, the slam dunk pretzels, and the apple cobbler. All of these meals pair well with Oktoberfest beers and Angry Orchard on draft. Dine in or order online at glorydaysgrill.com and pick up your favorites to take home. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
What's up, everyone? This is Tyus Bowser, and I'm excited to tell you that I'm back for Season 2 of the Tyus Bowser Show in partnership with Pressbox and Great H Memorabilia. Join us on Tuesday nights throughout the season as I'll be heading all over town with my special guests. And of course, our co-hosts, Glenn and Rita. Or is it Rita and Glenn? What is it? I look forward to meeting you guys and talking a little bit about football and a lot about life. And if you happen to miss the show, you can now catch a replay Friday nights on 105.7 The Fan. Get all of your details for the Tyus Bowser Show right now at PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser.
The next Tyus Bowser Show is Tuesday, November 15th at Mother's North Grill in Timonium. It's brought to you by Maryland Vascular Specialists and the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Experience the best in Kamado Grilling, a complete outdoor cooking appliance. The Ginsu Kamado Grill allows anyone to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all types of food. Designed for efficiency and function, the Ginsu Kamado Grill upholds the enduring legacy of the iconic Ginsu brand. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is perfect to cook all year round, is great for parties, and ideal for tailgating with your friends. Reserve your Ginsu Kamado Grill today at ginsugrills.com and get $100 off on your pre-order when you use the promo code TAILGATE. That's ginsugrills.com. Reserve yours today.
All right, welcome back to the Bet Around. Today's show, hour number 2, brought to you by the latest edition of Press Box, which is available now. On the cover, new Maryland basketball coach Kevin Willard sits down with Stan Charles and Glenn Clark to discuss the situation he inherited in College Park and how he plans to get the program turned around. Also inside, we introduce you to men's and women's college basketball players from all the teams in the area, and Bo Smolka profiles Ravens receiver Devin Duvernay. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com. Joining us now on the program, he is the play-by-play man for AT&T Sports Net for the Houston Astros. He is Todd Kalas, and he's live on the Bet Around. Good morning, Todd. It's Paul. It's Zach. How are you today?
Good, guys. How's it going?
Hang on. We're having a connection issue. Give me just a second there, Todd. Are you there, Todd? Can you hear me?
Fine. Can you hear me?
Oh. Sincerest apologies, Zach. What do we got going on over there?
I'm not entirely sure. Nothing is off over here. So
Todd, we're going to give you a call back here in just a second. If you can bear with us, we're having a technical difficulty with our soundboard. So Zach's going to give him a call back. Really interested in talking with Todd. He is a very well-known broadcaster for the Houston Astros. The Astros, of course, a win away from a World Series championship here. They would be their second World Series championship in the last 6 years, playing in their fourth World Series in 6 years. I'm interested to know what the Astros' legacy is, because this has been an epic 6-year run for them, but they have just the one World Series title despite playing in 4. Justin Verlander picks up his first career World Series victory last night, playing in his 5th World Series, making his 9th start. Do we have Todd back? I think we have Todd back. Todd, good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you, Todd.
Can you hear? All right, cool.
Sorry about that. Now, the Astros, they're a win away from a World Series championship. Todd, what does it say about the Astros' 6-year run where they're now playing in their 4th World Series in 6 years if they win it? And what does it say if they don't?
Yeah, it's been a major run. Something we may not see for a long time. No team's ever won or ever gotten to 6 league championship series in 6 years. The Braves had a run there with a year in between with a strike. But, yeah, it's been phenomenal. And adding a World Series title tonight or tomorrow would certainly help things out in terms of what people remember of this Astros team, because right now everybody knows what happened in 2017. So if they can get one here in 2022, 5 years later, this place is ready to explode tonight.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. And you kind of felt that atmosphere in Philadelphia on the other side of things, ready to explode with those games. And the Astros managed to quiet that down, winning games 4 and 5 on the road. Dusty Baker, 2,093 career wins, 9th most all-time, most amongst active managers now that Tony La Russa is out in Chicago. This would be his first World Series title. Now, sure, the players want to win anyway, but how badly does that clubhouse want this for their skipper, and does that give them a little bit of extra juice?
Yeah, I think there's so much juice in this series anyhow that I'm not sure they need too many more motivating factors, but that is certainly one of them if they did. Dusty has been a lifer in the game, and he thought he may never get another chance at a World Series. And then Jim Crane, the owner, called him and sought him out, as he was one of the guys that interviewed for this job and ultimately got this job. So, yeah, for Dusty to get this World Series title, if he gets it tonight or tomorrow in his 25th year as a manager, he's already probably he already is a Hall of Fame manager based on his 2,000 wins, but this would just solidify it. It would mean the world to Dusty. I was talking to a few people who were inside the celebration after the Yankees sweep in the ALCS, and they said Dusty was as excited as any player in that clubhouse. So I can imagine Dusty probably didn't sleep a whole lot last night, even though this team is pretty much sleep deprived here over the last few weeks. But Dusty was probably ready to go at 5 a.m. today, getting ready for what could be his first World Series title as a manager.
And it was a brilliant hire for the Astros to bring him in after everything going on from the 2017 team with all that scandal. You bring in a guy that's just well liked universally across baseball, going for his first World Series win. It's certainly a reason to root for the Astros if you aren't already. And I know this isn't Astros related, but you talk about how Dusty Baker is already a Hall of Famer with 2,000 wins. If he wins a World Series, it solidifies that. In Baltimore, we are very fond of a guy named Buck Showalter. He's won 3 Manager of the Year awards. He is in line to win another one in the National League there, a 4th one. Never won a World Series, never been to a World Series. Is he a Hall of Famer? And I know it's a little off topic.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, to be honest with you. I think he is certainly in that conversation. I think it's easy for anybody when they ask about a guy, whether he's a Hall of Famer or not, it's easy just to say yes, because everybody wants to be positive about whoever you're speaking with.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think Buck's on that track, and I would have to look up how many managerial career wins he has. Do you have that number?
I don't in front of me. I remember he got his 1,000th win in 2012 in May for the Orioles, and he's been managing for quite a while since then. So I have to say he's probably around 1,600 or 1,700. My producer's pulling that number up as we speak. Zach,
I think he is. I think he's on his way. Certainly a couple of successful years with the Mets is going to solidify that. But Buck has been with a lot of organizations and has been very successful. So I would say it is likely. I think if his career ended today, I'd have to look deeper into the numbers, but I wouldn't be shocked if Buck ends up as a Hall of Famer.
So he is 1,652 and 1,578. That's a .511 win percentage.
In over 3,000 games. Not a bad record at all. Now, getting back to the World Series and the Astros, Game 4 features just a second no-hitter in World Series history. Todd, it was a combined no-hitter. Combined no-hitters do very little for me. And I tried to get myself excited about it because it's the World Series, and I still couldn't just get over the top about it. It didn't look like the Astros. The Astros are business as usual here, right? Gurriel catches the final out at first base on the throw from Bregman, throws his hands in the air for a second, claps, and then they do their normal victory celebration. We did hear that they're going to celebrate it correctly once they've won, when and if they win the World Series. For me, like I said, I didn't get too hyped up about it. Is that kind of the sentiment around the team as well, that it was just kind of like a fancy shutout because it's the World Series and it was combined?
I think what they were, the game was pretty intense going in because they knew they couldn't get down 3-1 in the series. So I think, first and foremost, your major focus is to win that game. So Once that game was kind of at hand, then they celebrated a little bit with that World Series. I think, Christian Vasquez called a great game. Christian Javier executed that game plan, and then the guys out of the bullpen did the same. So yeah, I mean, it's still historic. It's still a huge moment in Astros history. But in terms of drama, it probably didn't have the same drama as if a guy who went 9 innings was pitching a no-hitter. But, I go back to the Yankee Stadium no-hitter this year, and that was incredible because, the Yankees haven't been no-hit much in the last 40 or 50 years. Only the Astros have done it, and now they've done it twice, and both times have been combined no-hitters. I think, right now we're still in that era where we're used to one pitcher going the distance for a no-hitter or a perfect game, but that's going to get fewer and further between, I think, as we move forward in our baseball fandom, because pitchers just simply don't throw 9 innings very often anymore.
Well, yeah, and you look at Vasquez that night. He had thrown 97 pitches in 6 innings. There's no way he's coming back out for the 7th inning. And it used to be, even 10 years ago, you'd give that guy every opportunity to go out there and finish that game out for himself, even if he has to throw 140 pitches. So I agree with you on that one. Now, Justin Verlander, crazily enough, he's pitching in his 5th World Series, making his 9th World Series start, and finally gets his first World Series victory as a starting pitcher. How big was that win for Verlander? Is it kind of like a monkey off the back now for him?
Yeah, a huge weight off his shoulders. He was acting like a kid after the game. He was so excited. Every interview I saw of him, he was as fired up as I've seen him after a start in a long time. It was the last start of the 2022 season. He knew all the questions going in were about not having a win in a World Series and 8 starts, being 0-7. So, yeah, it was important for him. Most importantly, that the team got the win, but he certainly wanted to add that W to his name. So I guess they threw him in the shopping cart. They threw him into the shower and fired a lot of liquids on top of him, treated him like a rookie, winning his first major league game after that one in the post-game celebration. So it was a cool moment for JV. It was a cool moment for the team. And more importantly, that was a huge pivotal game to give the Astros a chance to wrap it up tonight.
Cool to be able to treat a 17-year veteran like a rookie, and probably getting that treatment from a rookie himself and Jeremy Pena. The team loses Carlos Correa in the offseason. Here comes Jeremy Pena. He wins a Gold Glove at shortstop, first rookie to do that. Hits 20 homers, and he could be the World Series MVP. You're never going to forget about Carlos Correa and his contributions, but how easy has Jeremy Pena made this transition for the Astros and their fan base?
It's been incredible. And I remember my first impressions of this kid was that he's a strong kid. Like, I didn't realize how big he was and strong. And then he knows how to play the game. Like, all the little nuances about Jeremy in the field, base running, just knows the game of baseball. And some of that, obviously rubbed off from his dad being a major league player growing up with that. But then as the season progressed early on, there were a couple big moments early where he hit a walk-off home run a couple of times in his first 2 or 3 months of his career. And you're thinking, this kid really enjoys the moment. He can slow things down in the most pressurized situation, even coming in for Carlos Correa, who had an incredible career here in Houston. Even with all that on his shoulders, and even in those biggest moments, in a possible walk-off situation, he was coming through. Now, did that mean I was going to see that translate to a possible ALCS MVP and a possible World Series MVP? Not necessarily, but this kid has been amazing. He has been the key to the offense. And one of the reasons why the Astros are on the doorstep of a World Series title, Pena could win a second MVP if things go well tonight.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Juan Soto with the Nationals in 2019, just that young kid who you're watching on the brink of superstardom, making his name known in the World Series. It's been awesome to watch for sure. Now, whether we like it or not, Todd, the offseason starts Monday morning. What do the Astros need to do this coming off season to ensure that they can get back to another World Series? Because when you look at it, they're not going to have 19 games against a really bad A's team or a really bad Angels team. You're going down to 14 games against division opponents. You got to play every team in baseball, so it may make things easier for the come-up Seattle Mariners and Texas Rangers. Could the title window be closing, and what do the Astros need to do to make sure that that's not the case?
Yeah, just a few tweaks here and there. I mean, Michael Brantley's contract is up, but they didn't have Brantley all this season, at least the second half, with that injury. Justin Verlander can opt out of his contract, so that'll be a big decision for him. And then if he makes that decision, the Astros will obviously do their best to get him re-signed, and if not, they'll have to, look for a piece or two. They have incredible depth in their pitching, starting and relieving right now, as good as it's been in the 6 years I've been here. So. The other question would be Yuli Gurriel, who was in his late 30s at first base and did not have a good season. He is having a nice postseason, but he is not signed for next year. So to me, those are the biggest questions. Chas McCormick has maybe solidified himself in center field, whereas early in the year he was probably just fighting for a job. So to me, it would be first base and then that DH left field spot, and then possibly a second catcher to go along with Maldonado as your 3 area. So just kind of tweaking here and there, and they're still in a really good spot to continue this run next season.
Yeah, you have all the pitching in the world to do it again. Trey Mancini got traded over there from the Orioles. He's 0-for-18 this postseason, 0-for-6 in the World Series. Had the really big play at first base after the Gurriel injury to save the game in the bottom of the 8th inning the other night. Is there not a chance that maybe they bring him back as a bench player and a backup first baseman, or do you think that his time in Houston is coming to a close?
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting one. I love the fact that Trey's here, and I love the fact that he's getting a chance to play in the postseason for the first time. I think, all his comments have been on point and what you would expect out of a guy of his character. He basically said, after Game 5 of the World Series, he goes, I was brought over here to bring quality at bats, and I haven't been able to do that, and it's been frustrating. I know it's been weighing on him. I don't know him personally as well as a lot of Baltimore people do. But I know it has been weighing on him. And it's one of those things where he is doing everything he can to give himself the best chance in every at-bat. It's just not working out right now. And he's not the only one. Aledmys Diaz is struggling. Since the ALDS, Yordan Alvarez has struggled. Jose Altuve struggled early in the postseason. So Trey's not the only one, but Trey has really been battling. So for him to make that play over first base the other night was huge. But to answer your question, I think they're going to look at Trey along with other people as candidates over in that first base and part-time DH role. But, I don't know if the time here has obviously given them a chance to get to know Trey better. Not that they didn't know he was a man of great character going into this, but I think certainly everybody loves Trey here in the Astros clubhouse. So we'll see. I think Trey will find his right place, whether it's here in Houston or not. But I think he'll probably want some regular bats somewhere, and whether that's with the Astros or somebody else.
The Astros would be lucky to have him for a full season. Trey is just a hell of a human being. He's probably a better person than he is a baseball player, and that's saying something. So, look, we know you got at least one more game to call, so we're going to let you go so you can rest that voice for tonight's game. Where can people find you if they're looking for you?
Twitter on Real, at Real Todd Kalas.
All right, we'll be sure to have everybody give you a follow. Todd, thank you so much for taking some time for us. Good luck tonight, and hopefully you'll be calling a World Series victory.
I would love it. Hopefully the champagne is flowing tonight, guys. Thanks.
All right, enjoy yourself. See you. That's Todd Kalas from the AT&T Sports Net, legendary broadcaster for the Houston Astros, joining us on the show. We got to catch a break. Before we do, want to remind you that online sports betting will be starting in Maryland in the next few weeks, and PressBox is your source for the best offers and sign-up incentives. Starting now, you can get a $100 pre-registration credit from our friends at FanDuel by going to PressBoxOnline.com/offers. The $100 credit is in addition to the new user promo you will get when they go live. Just go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers now to get your $100 FanDuel pre-registration bonus credit. That's PressBoxOnline.com/offers. We're going to catch a break. When we come back in, the Bet Around, and then we're going to have Connor Newcomb from the Locked On Orioles podcast to do some Orioles banter with us. That and more next on the Bet Around.
Have you been to Guilford Hall Brewery? Located in Baltimore's Station North neighborhood, Guilford Hall Brewery breaks the craft brew mold with their great handcrafted microbrews and amazing Bavarian-style food selections. Join Guilford Hall 7 days a week for Orioles, Ravens, and all of your favorite college games. Make plans now to watch the big games, play trivia, or bring your dog for Yappy Hour. They even have free valet service on Friday and Saturday nights. Go to guilfordhall.com for a complete schedule of events, beer listings, and food and drink specials. We'll see you at Guilford Hall Brewery.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Receive a free Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich offer card as a thank you when you donate to Toys for Tots on Saturday, November 12th at any of the 13 Baltimore area Chick-fil-A Stuff the Truck event sites. Be one of the first 50 people to donate, and you will also get a free t-shirt. For a location list and more information, visit PressBoxOnline.com/toy drive.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North North Point Boulevard.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook Assistant GM Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all of the info you need and offer you a few winners. And every other Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stecca and Alloy Sports' Brad Kronthal help make you some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline.
Experience the best in Kamado Grilling, a complete outdoor cooking appliance. The Ginsu Kamado Grill allows anyone to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all types of food. Designed for efficiency and function, the Ginsu Kamado Grill upholds the enduring legacy of the iconic Ginsu brand. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is perfect to cook all year round, is great for parties, and ideal for tailgating with your friends. Reserve your Ginsu Kamado Grill today at ginsugrills.com and get $100 off on your pre-order when you use the promo code TAILGATE. That's ginsugrills.com. Reserve yours today.
We're back live on the Bat Around. The Bat Around brought to you by the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill, which is the perfect ceramic tailgate or home grill to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all kinds of food. Get the details and reserve yours today at ginsugrills.com and use the code TAILGATE to get $100 off your order. Come get a sample of the cooking from the Ginsu Kamado Grill before every Ravens home game this season at the Game Day Firehouse, located at the Firefighters Union Hall just west of the stadium at 1202 Ridgely Street. You can stop by, try some food, and enter to win a Ginsu Kamado ceramic grill and $500 worth of grilling meats. Zach, I think for the next Ravens home game, you have to go.
Well, I think
to the Game Day Firehouse because you need a Ginsu Kamado grill to cook your smamming.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I set the fire alarm off and everything last night. I mean, man, I really need a Ginsu grill.
Yeah, you need to go get it.
I'm not sure they'd appreciate it like inside the apartment, though.
Yeah.
Not sure they'd like that.
Yeah.
But hey, we got a backyard.
Yeah, you got a backyard.
Throw a little Ginsu grill back there.
So I had a friend back in the day when I worked at Bonefish who called me her smammin.
That's
so every now and again I will call salmon smammin, just as an ode to her.
Salmon's a great food.
It is. I enjoy smammin.
You can ask my dad. I mean, he eats it like 6 days a week. I'm not even kidding. That's not an exaggeration.
All right.
6 days a week.
Well, more smammin details to come. All right. We've got to get to the Bet Around. The Bet Around brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. The ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. The FanDuel Sportsbook is where we get our bets for the Bet Around. Last week, we told you to take the under on 7 runs at -110. We hit. Astros won 5-1. We told you to take Alex Bregman at +500 to homer. We hit. Alex Bregman hit a 2-run homer. Not a bet, but we told you Altuve's bat was heating up and that he'd have a big game. He went 3 for 5. Hit. This week, you got Zach Wheeler versus Framber Valdez this evening in Game 6 of the World Series. The under of 7 runs is playing at -128, and I'm saying take it. Take the under. It's going to be a pitcher's duel tonight. I'm looking at a 3-2 or a 4-2 ball game.
You won't make a ton of money off it because it is the favored line, correct? Like
yes, it is the favored line. But if you want to make any kind of money, if you want to bet your $128 to win 100, then take the under. Because I think you're looking at one team might score 1 or no runs. There's already been 3 shutouts in this World Series.
Yeah.
I'm saying take the under on this one. I'm also saying big game, big player. Take Bryce Harper at plus 440 to hit a home run tonight. If the Phillies are going to win this game, Harper's going to have to shine bright and have a big moment. I think he's got another one in that bat of his. I'm taking Bryce Harper at plus 440 to homer. So, we were right in our predictions last week.
Yeah.
We're if you pay attention, Zach and I are right a lot.
We are
on this show. Like when we called the Renato Nunez and Hanser Alberto DFAs 2 months before they happened.
That started it, and then we've had kind of a string after that.
We've been pretty on point ever since then. So that again, taking the under on 7 runs at minus 128, and taking Bryce Harper plus 440 to homer in Game 6 of the World Series. That's going to do it for the bet around. More on the bat around. We're going to have Connor Newcomb. If Zach, you want to give Connor a call here. Connor's going to join us here from the Locked On Orioles podcast in just a moment. A lot of things going on with the Orioles. Whether the World Series ends today or tomorrow, free agency begins the end of next week. We're sad to see baseball go, but we're happy to see the Orioles maybe start to make some moves and get themselves back to being a playoff contender in 2023 and beyond. And there's a lot of questions about this team. And for once, it's good questions. What? Just speak into the mic.
Yeah, sorry. I don't have the number for some reason. So if you could shoot me Connor's number.
How do you not have
I don't know. We had
Connor?
him on a few weeks ago. Maybe that was one of the Ryan Blake shows. I don't remember.
No. It was definitely with you. We've had him on enough that you should have Connor's
Apple,
number.
figure it out. I think it's Apple screwing with my contacts.
Maybe just save him in your contacts.
Yeah, that might
bro.
be a good idea.
I think that's probably your best bet.
I'd appreciate the send.
Right. I'm going to share this with Zachary Goodman.
Awesome, thank you. Nah, that's on Apple. We'll blame them.
Yeah, it's never Zach's fault.
It's the iCloud.
God bless your future wife, man. So we're gonna have Connor here to join us. A lot of good questions for the Orioles. What's their outfield gonna look like? What's their infield gonna look like? Because they have too many good defenders and too few spots. Too many good players and too few spots. Heston Kjerstad, he's lighting it up in the Arizona Fall League, but he's striking out a 30% clip against. They have 16 top 100 prospects in the Arizona Fall League, and only 2 of them are pitchers. And Heston Kjerstad, while hitting close to 360, leading the league in home runs, striking out a 30% clip. He's in the home run derby tonight. He's going to be in the Arizona Fall League All-Star game tomorrow. So we're going to have to see what kind of player he is. It's better than the alternative. It's not like he's striking out a 30% clip and hitting 120. So when he is making contact, he's doing a lot of damage. So we're going to talk about that and Trey Mancini's terrible World Series and what the future holds for him. On the line with us now from the Locked On Orioles podcast is Connor Newcomb. And Connor, it's Paul. Good morning. Thanks for taking some time for us today.
Paul, thank you so much for having me on. It is a good morning because we know that either today or tomorrow the off season starts and the fun begins.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why you're on the show with us. It's not really an interview at this point with you, Connor. It's just we're going to have some talking points here about it's Orioles banter for a reason. We're going to be looking at the Orioles infield to start, and you just did your episode on Ramon Arias winning a Gold Glove. Now, Ramon wins with just 98 games played at the hot corner, 769 in the third innings, but 14 defensive runs saved. He was clearly the best defensive third baseman in the American League. Came a long way from when I watched him bounce 2 warm-up throws on opening day in the prior to the first inning to win that Gold Glove. You have him at third base. You have Jorge Mateo at shortstop, who was by every defensive metric the best defensive shortstop in the game and didn't even finish as a finalist in the American League. You've got strong defense up the middle with Mullins in center field and Rutschman behind the plate. But you also have Gunnar Henderson, who you're going to play every day. He's going to take up one of those spots on the left side of the infield because you don't really want him playing second base. Your minor league player of the year in Jordan Westburg is likely to play second base. What do you do with Ramon Arias and Jorge Mateo for the 2023 season, Connor?
Paul, I appreciate you getting to the most difficult question probably of this roster crunch for this offseason because, on one hand, it is really nice that the Orioles are finally charged with these tough decisions because last year in this time we would have been saying, this is great. We've got Ramon Arias at third. We've got Jorge Mateo at short. The Orioles, we know they're not going to do anything in the offseason anyway, so they've got the left side of the infield locked down. Well, now you've got Gunnar Henderson. You've got Jordan Westburg knocking on the door. And at some point next year, if Joey Ortiz keeps playing like he did this year, he's going to be knocking on that door as well as maybe, a better version of Jorge Mateo, because the defense is really that good and the bat's better, could be a better version. And you're still looking at free agency. And I really do think, I would love to see the Orioles bring in the Trey Turner, the Carlos Correa, the Xander Bogaerts. But I really think even if they don't, they're going to sign a free agent infielder. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be the big name 5-year, $200 million guy, but some sort of utility guy, who costs $5 to $10 million, who's a veteran presence that's better than Rougned Odor, I think will come in. So you have to add that to the equation as well. And I just think it's hard because it's hard to pass up a pretty much Gold Glove left side of the infield.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to not go into next year and say Arias and Mateo are going to scoop everything. And even if you did it this way, even if you said, you know what, Gunnar Henderson's a great defender too. Henderson at third, Mateo at short, Arias at second, and Mountcastle at first. There's not many better defensive infields in baseball.
That's
if you
correct.
set it up like that. So if you're just looking at defense, you would feel amazing going into next year. The issue is you have question marks about all four guys offensively. The Gunnar question mark is the fact that he still has to play a full major league season. We don't quite know what that's going to look like.
Sure.
Mateo is, can he stop swinging, missing, and everything? Arias is, can he finally hit the ball in the air? And Mountcastle's is, we have a lot of promise, but can he stop swinging at that slider down and away?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost about how much of that uncertainty can you live with to trade off for elite defense. And I think it's going to end up that 3 of those 4 guys will end up in the infield. And one of either Arias or Mateo is going to get moved either out of the starting lineup or moved altogether in favor of a more consistent bat.
Yeah, and I think that you just stole the thunder from my next question. I think it's likely we see one of these 2 guys moved, and at some point, if the offensive production isn't there, they then move from a starting role to a utility role. And so if you're telling me that Ramon Arias gets traded in a package with an outfielder for a starting pitcher, Mateo gets the start at shortstop to start the year, but the bat doesn't play, and then you have to move him to the bench in favor of Joey Ortiz. Again, good problem to have, but I think we're looking at it with this roster crunch. We're looking at it potentially either Arias or Mateo or both being traded or moved out of everyday roles this coming season.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be tough because I've said this on my podcast. I said this on The Verge, their live show a couple weeks ago. I think Ramon Arias probably altogether right now is a better baseball player than Jorge Mateo. I think it's close, but I think Arias is better. But when you look at the fact that both of them potentially, if the Orioles do go add to this team, could both potentially be moved to a bench role, I almost think Jorge Mateo, despite the fact that I maybe put him below Arias in terms of overall baseball player, especially as a hitter,
Mm-hmm.
I think Mateo is much more valuable as a bench player than
agree.
Arias will ever be. I mean, pinch running, got it right there, 35 stolen bases. Defensively, he's elite at shortstop. He can play second base, and he can play the outfield a little bit, which helps. And in terms of just providing a spark as a pinch hitter, Arias is a better hitter than Mateo is. I don't think anyone's arguing that. But, in a one spot where you need a big hit, maybe you need an extra base hit, I trust Mateo more, who actually will lift the ball, instead of Arias, who at any time is just going to beat the ball into the ground for a double play because he struggles so much hitting the ball in the air, despite the fact that when he does, that's when he's great. And so I think if it ends up where both of them are fighting for a bench spot, it's going to go to Mateo, despite the fact that Arias is a better hitter and might be the better overall player.
Yeah, I think that for an everyday role, you're probably right that Arias is a better player. But when you have somebody coming off the bench, what are they coming off the bench for? They're coming off the bench as a defensive replacement. They're coming off the bench to pinch run, maybe to pinch hit. Then, yeah, you look at Mateo. He is the more valuable player because of what he can do in all facets. And with his legs, the speed being the number one factor there. Another guy who's pretty speedy, Cedric Mullins. I believe he finished tied with Mateo, or was he one behind him in stolen bases this year? I think he had 34, right?
Yeah, they went 35 and 34. Who won? One of them won. One of them came right
Mateo won.
Doesn't
Mateo had 35 and Mullins had 34. And he was a finalist for the Gold Glove in center field. Came out this past week, and I can't remember who put it out there, that the Orioles would be willing to listen on Cedric Mullins in the right deal. And you were pretty quick to shoot that down. You said if they were going to move him, they would have moved him last year. And it's the fact that he's here now that you think he's going to stay here. I'm pumping the brakes on that one. on that take a little bit there, Connor. I think that if the Orioles with Colton Cowser waiting in the wings in the minor leagues, if the Orioles can trade Cedric Mullins to, say, the Marlins for a Jesus Luzardo or a Pablo Lopez as part of a package, I think that they would be willing to do that. And I think that brings you into play for a left-handed bat with better splits, who's a good hitter and a good defender in Brandon Nimmo, who is a free agent this offseason.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I think you also have to look at like what a trade would be for Cedric Mullins.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they traded him last year, obviously that trade would be, we're trading a guy who just had a 30-30 season, who was an all-star, who had this incredible breakout year, and is still, at that point, 26 years old. You'd be trading him for prospects because the Orioles had just won 52 games. Now, if you're going to trade him this offseason, I think some of my pushback to that was, we still haven't seen a Mike Elias trade that has brought back Major League talent. We still haven't seen it yet. I'm hoping we see it this offseason. We should, but we haven't. So until we see it, my mind, and I'm sure your guys does too, and any trade rumor, my mind goes directly to trading him for prospects, only because we haven't seen anything different. Now, I think we're going to, and we can start to shift that mindset. But I think the immediate pushback was, if the Orioles were going to trade Cedric Mullins for prospects, it would have happened last year. Because I think the O's knew last year, maybe they thought they'd get more out of Mullins this year, but they probably knew this is the best season he's ever going to have. And that was okay, because he's still a productive player this year, even though he wasn't that 30-30 player. Yeah. So I think once they got to this year with him, they realized that he can be a piece moving forward. Now, I will say, I am willing to have that conversation that you're bringing up, that if the Miami Marlins, and I think we talk about the Marlins because they have legitimately no hitters and too many pitchers. So it's kind of a perfect trade, trade partner for the Orioles. If they really say, look, Cedric Mullins is what's going to get you Pablo Lopez, I have that conversation because A, Colton Cowser, I think B, more importantly, you can go get an outfielder. It's a little worrisome because Austin Hayes isn't as much of that solid replacement for now in center field if Cowser's not ready as he maybe was, we thought 4 months ago. He's in a little different spot on this roster, and as is Ryan McKenna, who I think is never going to be more than a fourth outfielder.
Right.
So that's a little worrisome for early in the season because you just don't know if Cowser's even ready. He didn't have that much time at AAA. I don't think the O's are planning on putting him on the opening day roster. But if it really got you that ace and a controllable ace, I would have that conversation. I just think Mullins is so valuable even when he's not hitting 30 homers that I think it just makes the most sense to keep him on this team and find other ways to go get pitching.
The problem there is that with Mullins being a left-handed batter exclusively now and how much he struggled against left-handed pitching last year, I think he's too good of a player to put in a platoon role, but they seem to, especially the second half of the year, they seem to be more willing to bench him or bat him lower in the lineup against left-handed pitching. Do you think that takes away from the value to the Orioles for Mullins, because now you're looking at a guy who you would expect to be playing every day, but maybe he's playing 120 or 130 games because they don't want to have him face left-handed pitching?
Yeah, it brings down the value. I mean, he did play 156 games. Now, a lot of that was because sometimes when he did sit, he'd come in late to pinch hit or maybe play center field. But still, 156 games is a pretty good chunk. And I believe, that did lead the Orioles this year. So he still played in more games than anybody else, despite struggling against lefties. I kind of liked what they did at the end, it seemed like, where, he would sit every once in a while for McKenna against a lefty, but generally he would hit, 7th or 8th against a left-hander. And I'm fine with that because I also think my ideal scenario for Cedric Mullins with the Orioles is they keep him around, and down the line 2 years from now or so, he's basically like their 8th hitter. And he's stealing bases, and he's playing a good center field, and he's hitting down at the bottom of the lineup. And he might get you 15 homers, but he's more to hit some singles and some doubles and play good defense and kind of be that prototypical bottom of the order hitter. So I was okay with that because I see that maybe being a future role for him as he gets a little bit older. But I would like to see him in this uniform. But again, it's true that his value is a little less, that they were willing to hit him lower and even sometimes play Ryan McKenna over him because he struggled. I mean, the stats show it. He was really bad against left-handed pitching this year, where it wasn't so much of an issue last year, even though he was hitting fully left-handed last year. So we'll see. That's going to be the number one thing he works on this offseason, obviously. So we'll see what he looks like coming back into spring training if he is still with the Orioles. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, you never know if that hurts his trade value to another team because they look at him and say, can we truly play him every day because he was so bad against lefties? So, it'll be interesting. And the thing about those rumors, too, is like, Mike Elias is going to listen to offers.
Sure.
That word listen, he's going to listen to everyone. Like, he's not going to hang up the phone on anybody unless they're saying, hey, I'll give you this guy for Adley Rutschman. Then he might hang up the phone. But, I mean, in general, he's going to listen on pretty much everyone. That's just the due diligence of your job. It doesn't mean he's, actively shopping guys. Those are two different things.
No, yeah, absolutely. Look, I think that Cedric Mullins in the Orioles uniform is only a good thing. He's only a year removed from hitting .277 against left-handed pitching for the entirety of a season. So if he stays in Baltimore, I think that's great. If he gets traded for a top-of-the-line starting pitcher that's young and controllable, I think that's great too. I'm very excited to see what they do with the outfield in general. You mentioned Ryan McKenna. Jake Cave just agreed to a 1-year deal, split contract, so he gets his salary is determined based on whether he's in the majors or in the minors. Kind of takes it takes the arbitration cloud away from that one particular player. You and I talked about Jake Cave before I came on to do the Ryan Mountcastle preview with you, or season review with you, and you said that somebody had told you that they thought of him as a left-handed better Ryan McKenna. Does Jake Cave getting that deal kind of spell the end of Ryan McKenna's days, or that McKenna's days are numbered as a fourth outfielder?
Yeah, it's tough because McKenna still has, he still has options. He still has control. He's not even at arbitration yet, so
Sure.
He's not like a non-tender candidate. And when you look at Jake Cave, I did an episode about him when the O's claimed him off waivers, and it really was what you said. I mean, he's basically a left-handed McKenna at this point. But the only difference I'll say with Cave is that he's a little older. He's also a left-handed hitter, but he has had better success in the big leagues previously than McKenna's ever had. So when Cave first came up with Minnesota, I believe 2018 or 19, he actually had a great offensive year. Now, He was playing kind of almost every day. He was more of like a 4 games per week kind of guy, but he was having great offensive stats. Now, those completely tanked as he hit age 30, basically, and he became just a good defender who had a left-handed bat, so you rostered him. But, he was really only rostered by the Twins because Byron Buxton was so injured this year. But if the Orioles think there's something in that bat that he showed back in that rookie year, he's more valuable than Ryan McKenna because he can play defense. He's maybe not as fast, but he can still run a little bit. And he's got a better bat, I think, in there somewhere as a left-hander as well. And we know New Camden Yards, a left-handed bat, plays much better than a right-handed bat. So I think McKenna, maybe he won't be, DFA'd or anything, but I think he's in trouble of starting next year at Norfolk.
Yeah, I think that he is too. And look, this regime, they've made it known that they want left-handed bats up and down their lineup. When you look at their top prospects, whether it's Colton Cowser or Gunnar Henderson or Kyle Stowers or Rutschman being a switch hitter, these guys are all left-handed hitters. And Jake Cave kind of fits that mold as well. Now we're talking about the Orioles outfield. Another left-handed hitter, Heston Kjerstad, lighting it up in the Arizona Fall League. Still striking out, though, Connor, at a 30% clip, and it's against lesser pitching. I was listening to, I think it was Keith Law the other day, and they have 16 top 100 prospects in the Arizona Fall League, and only 2 of them are pitchers. And Kjerstad striking out still at a 30% clip. Now, he's hitting .358. He's got 5 home runs, got a couple doubles, a couple triples, like 17 RBIs. He's taking part in the Home Run Derby tonight, the All-Star game tomorrow. What are your thoughts on Heston Kjerstad? Should we be concerned that he's striking out so much, or is that just kind of the player that he is?
Yeah, I think it's the player he is. It's the player he was a little bit at Arkansas, but because the power is so great, and really the approach is great, I think the walks are going to be there along with the strikeouts. I think he's going to be kind of close to a 3 true outcomes guy, but with the walks and the power with the extra base hits being so big that it's going to help carry him throughout the minor leagues. And I just think for Kjerstad, I'm not super worried. The Arizona Fall League, it's not just a this year thing. In general, over the years, it's always much better hitters than pitchers because generally teams, unless pitchers were injured throughout the year, they're not sending their best pitching prospects to throw even more after their season is over. Really, the Arizona Fall League pitchers are generally guys who are mid-level to upper-level prospects who were injured for most of the season but got healthy for the last month or so, and they want more innings. So you're getting a much smaller pool of pitchers. It's a little concerning that he's striking out that much, but, he's still at a level where he's facing, better pitching than even he saw this year in Aberdeen across the board at the Arizona Fall League. So I still believe it's a step up from what he saw this year. But the hitting is great. I mean, the home run binge he went on as soon as the fall league started was nice because he was kind of the star of the fall league for really the first 2 weeks. And there's a lot of scouts down there that get to see him. He's going to be in Bowie next year, and we're really going to see, what he's made of, how far he's really come back from all that he went through. And really, I think, is it a little concerning? Yeah, maybe a little. It also could be just the player he's going to be. But I think overall the takeaway from what he's done is just awesome to see him finally have sustained success in professional baseball after everything, medically that he went through. And you're hearing a lot of scouts say, like, wow, he is finally the player that was drafted number 2 overall in the draft. Like, everyone's seeing that swing, that power from the left side, the ability to play the outfield as well is back for him. And it's exciting because you kind of left him out of your mind a little bit when ranking Orioles prospects recently because you just didn't know. And it wasn't his fault. It's just you don't know how he's going to recover from something like that. And it seems like he has. He's back in the fold. And now that he's back in the fold, he's easily a top 10 Orioles prospect. And now that he's going to be in Bowie, you can start thinking about that debut date, maybe not 2023, but the year after he really starts to enter your mind.
Oh, for sure. And, this is a guy, he got drafted number 2 overall, as you stated. And then it was 27 months from when he got drafted to when he played in his first professional game. And that's got to be hard on anybody. Like you said, not his fault. He had myocarditis. Then he comes back and he's amped up to be playing in a spring training in a complex game in the spring, and he tears his hamstring. He's out 8 to 12 weeks. Then he gets going down there. The bat takes off, moves up to Aberdeen, and it kind of slowed down a little bit, but he was good down the stretch there. Do you think that he's still firmly in the Orioles' plans, or do you think that they kind of are looking at him as, hopefully he plays well so that we can trade him?
I think they could trade him. I mean, guys get traded a lot who play in the fall league, and the other scouts get to really see them up close, and it helps to kind of market them to other teams. But I still think he's part of the Orioles' plans because I really do think he is like the prototypical player that Mike Elias wants to draft. I mean, he was really, he was Mike's second draft, his, first pick in his second draft as the Orioles GM. And what you've seen from some of the other players that Elias has drafted in the last couple of years, first dad was that first high pick where you're really like college bat, big power, really good swing mechanics, pretty swing, who can play defense as well. And that's what he is. And I really do think the Orioles are going to hold on to him because I think his swing, the way his power plays down the line and, even into like towards the bullpen in left center field, I think he's a perfect match for Camden Yards right now. And I just cannot wait to see him up in the big leagues. And yeah, there's always a chance that the Orioles are really in it this year and a team really wants Heston Kjerstad for that, starting pitcher the O's are looking to add at the deadline. He could certainly be dealt, but I just think his profile as a hitter plays so well for Camden Yards. And it's easy to be in his corner at this point. I really do want to see him debut as an Oriole.
Connor, you mentioned Bowie as the potential starting place for Kjerstad, and I've been thinking about this a little bit because he is kind of, I guess, behind a lot of the guys who would probably be at Bowie at that point from his draft class. Do you think there's any chance he starts out at Aberdeen just for maybe 10 games and then gets moved up and then maybe finds himself in AAA by the end of the year?
I think there's definitely a good chance he ends up in AAA. There's probably an outside chance he could go back to Aberdeen. I mean, he got a pretty good sample size at Aberdeen. And the other thing with Aberdeen is it is the most pitcher-friendly ballpark by far in the Orioles minor leagues. And a lot of times you'll see guys' stats kind of tank a little bit in Aberdeen and then get better in Bowie. We saw it with Colton Cowser this year as well. And I mean, he ended up with just under 200 plate appearances in Aberdeen. And, the fact that he is going to be 24 years old next year when the season starts, I think, and he was a first-round pick, if he's healthy, I think you just have to put him in AA Bowie. Age-wise, he's going to be ready. I think this time in the Arizona Fall League really helps because the talent of the pitchers there is at the very least in between what you'd see at Aberdeen and Bowie, if not what you'd see generally in Bowie. So he's at least starting that step up in Arizona, which I think tells me if he's still in the if there's not an off-season trade, I think it's opening day in Bowie for him.
I want to talk a little bit about Kyle Stowers. And he had the crazy reverse splits against left-handed pitching in the minor leagues. Doesn't get really any opportunities against left-handed pitching at the big league level. When he finally did, he hits the home run there late in the season. we had Luke Jackson on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he really thinks that even though the reverse splits were what they were, that the Orioles don't believe that that translates to the big league level and big league success for Kyle Stowers. Connor, do you see something with Kyle Stowers that would suggest that maybe he can't be the hitter that we think he could be? He's reached his ceiling at AAA, and I really expect him to get a lot more opportunity at the big league level, and he just simply didn't.
Yeah, I mean, he has, if you profiled him into a group, he kind of has that typical big power lefty swing that doesn't fare well against other left-handed pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not to say Kyle Stowers can't, but I think if you just toss Kyle Stowers into a random scenario, you didn't know anything about him, but you looked at his swing, you would say, this might be a guy who mashes righties and strikes out a lot against lefties. And you know, if you looked at other guys who fit that profile, his swing and his profile as a hitter is kind of similar. Now, it was one of the funnier things when he homered off the lefty at Fenway Park in his second plate appearance against the lefty all season. That was when I realized that Kyle Stowers might be the most online Orioles player, because that was just hilarious. But, I mean, I think he's going to get more chances against left-handers next year. I think if Cedric Mullins sticks around and he's still struggling against lefties, we could maybe see a little more of Kyle Stowers against some left-handers next season, depending on how open the roster is for some Kyle Stowers at bats. But I do think, you know, the O's were in, it's tough to say this, but I think this was the truth. How good the Orioles were surprised Mike Elias. And it sucks that that is the reality. But even when he called up Terrin Vavra, and even when he called up Kyle Stowers, yeah, the Orioles had already gone on their 10-game winning streak. They were over 500. But I think a lot of baseball people, not just Elias, thought this is a great story, but there's no way this team's going to be playing meaningful September games. And that was even in, you know, July when they were calling these guys up. But they had a great August, and all of a sudden they were there. And I think the plan for Stowers and Vavra were, let's get them some at-bats when we can throughout August. And it stinks that this is the reality, but I think the thought was, hey, when we start to fall out of this in late August, let's phase in more Stowers, you know, and less Hayes and you know, whomever else. Let's phase in more Vavra and less Odor and less Nevin, and let's get these guys every day at bats in September so we can really see what's going on. Well, we got to September. The Orioles were still right in the thick of it. Odor was actually swinging it better. You know, Jorge Mateo was red hot at that point, and Gunnar Henderson was in the big leagues because they were good. And all of a sudden, you had to kind of reroute your plan. And Kyle Stowers and Terrin Vavra were put in a tough spot there because they had to reroute the plan. And it was to kind of just use them sparingly because they weren't top prospects. And so they were going to put Gunnar Henderson in that spot because he's a generational talent, but they were going to use the veterans and the guys who had been there over the rookies to kind of get through this team's first ever playoff race.
Sure.
And it was just unfortunate. And I think with a better plan with Stowers, knowing that this team is trying to win next year, you'll have a better plan with him going into next season. And I think he's going to have a role on this team. How the outfield plays out with Hayes, Mullins, and Santander, you know, there's questions about all of them, is really going to answer where Stowers fits in. But he's certainly going to have a spot. And I also do think he's going to get a few more chances against left-handers next year.
So then it sounds to me like you're a firm believer that Mike Elias does have his hand in just about every Orioles lineup, because there was a lot of ire towards Brandon Hyde the second half of the season with the lineup decisions that he would put out there and the quote-unquote punt lineups on Sundays and in day games. But do you believe that Elias had as much to do with that, if not more, than Brandon Hyde?
Yeah, I think a lot of what comes from Elias is, here's how much we're going to play Adley. Here's how much we're going to increase his playing time as the season goes on. Here's our plan with Rutschman, when you can DH him, when you can catch him. I think there was also some talk of, you know, hey, here's what we, you know, want to do with Terrin Vavra and Kyle Stowers. Oop, here's how we want to change it a bit because we are more in this than we thought. But I do think some of the Vavra and Stowers stuff is actually as much, if not more, Brandon Hyde, because I think him being around, you know, that Cubs team winning the World Series and seeing what it takes to compete in September, I think he favored his more veteran guys in those spots. And I think the Hyde part was, I favor more of these vets that they're going to be, you know, better suited for these scenarios. And I think the Elias part was, hey, if you don't want to subject Kyle Stowers to this right now, as soon as he gets to the big leagues, thrown into a pennant chase in September every day, then that's okay. And I think that kind of combined for him, you know, being here for 2 months and getting less than 100 plate appearances.
And you know what? That's a great take. It's a great take where he's saying, you know what? If you don't feel comfortable with this in this particular situation because it's still so early, that's an excellent take that I've never really even considered. And to be honest with you, I wasn't really ever irritated with the way that they used Adley Rutschman because I understood. I thought he had too many days off from catching. I think he played in 119 or 121 games this year, and he had 37 games off from catching. But I understood that because day game after a night game, he had the triceps injury, and it's still playing the most games, arguably the most games he's ever going to play to this point. It was more so just playing certain guys over other certain guys, but it makes sense the way that you lay it out there for me, that they would have done it that way. So I'm interested to see how they go about their lineup decisions and how they go about playing time when they expect to compete from day one. I think that'll be a very interesting look, and maybe we'll get to see what kind of a manager Brandon Hyde really is. I'm willing to give him that chance as far as I'm concerned. Connor, have you been paying attention to Trey Mancini in the World Series? A lot of people around Baltimore are like attached to Trey Mancini when it comes to just being Trey Mancini and him being in the World Series. 0 for 6 in the World Series, 0 for 18 in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on Trey's postseason?
Yeah, it's been a little sad to watch. And it was great to see him make that play at first base in Game 5, to have to come off the bench. I mean, if not for Yuli Gurriel basically getting kneed in the head and maybe having a concussion, it's going to be interesting to see the Astros lineup tonight. Because if Trey is in it, that probably means Gurriel's done for the postseason and means Trey is going to have to play first base in the clinching game, essentially, or over the next 2 games. And we could see some Game 6 and 7 Trey Mancini at bat. So hopefully he's figured it out a little bit. But if not for that injury, he was done. I mean, he was benched, and it was done for him. I mean, he was going to be on the bench unless there was an injury, and an injury came up. So it was great to see him make that game-saving play defensively at first base, which isn't, what he's known for as a player. But he does look lost in his first postseason at-bats. He's not seeing the ball well. The at-bat he had in Game 5, the one that he got after the Gurriel injury, I believe it was the 7th or 8th inning. He took a 1-1, 91-mile-per-hour fastball. I have never seen a fastball be more down the middle than the pitch he took. It was a fastball. It was 91 down the middle. He watched it go by, and then he swung at a big overhand curveball in the dirt to strike out. And it was just like Trey in an Orioles uniform is jumping all over that 1-1 fastball. And maybe he hits it to the warning track in front of Baltimore and shakes his head, but he puts a good swing on that ball. And he's just not doing it right now. So it stinks to watch, but I think he's going to get a ring here. I just think it's going to be so tough for Philly to win 2 games in Houston. So it's going to be nice for him. Not that he's had a big role, but I will say again, if Gurriel is really injured and he did not look good in Game 5, Trey's going to have to play a part in this Game 6 and 7. And I did see someone put this on Twitter. I'm not sure who it was, but this is a good way to think about it. Even if Trey, has an 0 for 4 in Game 6, there's a good chance that Trey Mancini is the last guy to touch the ball for the Astros as they win the World Series. Like if it's a ground ball to the infield, Trey Mancini is going to have that baseball as they win. And I think that's going to be a cool moment for him, even though this postseason has not been pretty.
Yeah, I think it will be too. And look, I have not shied away from the fact that I'm rooting for the Phillies in this postseason because of family members and really close friends who are all from Philly. And I'm a Bryce Harper guy. But if the Astros win, it's not going to suck watching Trey Mancini hoist that trophy and get a ring on that finger of his. But as far as Trey's future, for the rest of his career, maybe not the rest of his career, but for his immediate future, what's it look like? It has to look kind of bleak. It wasn't a great year, back-to-back years for Trey. I don't know that he's ever going to be the player again that he was prior to the cancer diagnosis. What's his future look like?
Yeah, I don't think Houston's going to bring him back. Now, Houston does have maybe an issue at first base because Yuli Gurriel took a giant step back offensively and defensively this year. He's almost 40. And so they're probably going to bring in a first baseman. But I kind of see them leaning more towards like the Josh Bell type in free agency. Okay. So I don't know if Mancini's going to be back. And he was not only bad in the playoffs in the World Series. Mancini was bad down the stretch. I mean, after the trade, he hit under 200. He was not productive. He had those first 2 weeks where he hit 3 or 4 homers and then just didn't do anything offensively. So I can't see them bringing him back. It's going to be tough because the way he's finished this season, and, he's 30, 31 years old, you're kind of looking at a guy who might be signing a bigger deal with a worse team. Like, does Trey Mancini end up on a worse baseball team than the 2023 Orioles? I think it's possible for him to, get at bats. Maybe if he's okay with, being more of a platoon part-time player, he could sign with a better team, because I think people still see the numbers in his bat and how unlucky he was in Baltimore this year, and he's still definitely a productive hitter. But it's going to be tough to get out of your mind what he did with Houston, and especially in the postseason. Now, I don't think we're at the point where he's, only going to sign a minor league deal. Like, he's going to get a major league contract from someone. But if he wants to play every day, it could be with a team that ends up being worse than the Orioles next year.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you there. Stan the Fan Charles did bring up Tampa Bay as a good destination for Trey. They don't really have much at first base, and I think that could be a good spot for him.
Yeah, I think that's a definite fit. And he'd still be a platoon player there, but he would play a lot. He'd probably play the outfield a little bit, and he'd get to be on a competitive team. Wouldn't that be something to see Mancini 14 times a year next year in another uniform?
Connor, are you suggesting that what Mancini could do in signing that bigger deal with a worse team would be similar to what Jonathan Scope did with the Tigers? Is it something like that, or would it be maybe even a bigger deal than that?
Yeah, I can see something like that, because that Scope deal wasn't massive. And also, you want to talk about a guy who's struggling. Jonathan Scope, he might be done in the big leagues with how bad he was this year. His defense is still really good. That might keep him around with a team like Detroit. I know he opted into his contract for next year, and the Tigers are so bad offensively, he'll probably play the next year at the big leagues. But once he becomes a free agent, like a guy like Scope might be done. So I hope that career trajectory doesn't happen to Mancini. But I could see that, because I think a team who's maybe a year or two away would just love to bring in Trey Mancini in that clubhouse and have him hit in the middle of the order. But it'll be interesting to see if Trey, saw what his role was in Houston and felt like, I'm okay with this role. Let me go sign a 2-year, $12 million deal with a contender and, play 3 to 4 times a week and be a pinch hitter. So, if he's open to that, it would happen. If he wants to play every day, I don't know if Houston's bringing him back to be their everyday first baseman.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Trey. I'm going to keep an eye on the possibility of Tampa Bay, because I think that could be a likely scenario for him. Connor, what can we plug for you before we let you go today?
Yeah, so the Locked On Orioles podcast, we're still daily throughout November, Monday through Friday on YouTube and on audio wherever you get your podcasts. We're continuing to kind of break down the season for every significant Orioles player this year. And coming up this week on the podcast, we will have an off-season preview extravaganza episode coming up, where I'm going to look at all the free agents the O's could go after, all the potential trades, all the kind of in-house decisions they have to make, whether it's 40-man protections, Jordan Lyles option, guys on the fringe of the major league roster, DFA candidates, that kind of thing. And so I just kind of get everybody ready for the offseason, and 5 days after that World Series ends. So it's going to be at some point this week, the O's can officially start trading for guys, start signing free agents, and hopefully it starts quickly and we see a different Orioles roster a couple weeks from now.
Yeah, hopefully Mike Elias is rolling those sleeves up and getting ready to get his hands dirty. So, Connor, thanks so much. Always great talking to you. We will talk to you soon down the line, all right?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on.
All right, man. See you. That's going to do it for Connor Newcomb from the Locked On Orioles podcast. Always great talking with Connor. Nice Orioles banter segment with him there. A lot of big things to consider moving forward for this Orioles roster in the outfield, in the infield with that starting rotation. So tune into his daily episodes all Monday through Friday this coming week, where he's going to preview the offseason. We'll also be previewing the offseason next Saturday in our show. So tune into Connor for a little primer, and then we'll continue it ourselves. We got to catch our final break. Want to remind you that the next Tyus Bowser show is Tuesday, November 15th at Mother's North Grill in Timonium. Tyus and a special guest will join Rita and Glenn, and this is your opportunity to meet Baltimore football stars while getting the inside scoop on the purple and black. The Tyus Bowser show is a partnership of Pressbox and Great Ace Memorabilia, and brought to you by Maryland Vascular Specialists and the all-new Ginsu Grill, where Zach's going to cook some Smammons. Find out more at PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser. And if you happen to miss the Tyus Bowser show, you can check it out Friday nights throughout the season on 105.7 The Fan. When we come back in, the final take to rake of the 2022 Major League Baseball season. That and more next on the Bet Around.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Receive a free Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich offer card as a thank you when you donate to Toys for Tots on Saturday, November 12th at any of the 13 Baltimore area Chick-fil-A Stuff the Truck event sites. Be one of the first 50 people to donate, and you will also get a free t-shirt. For a location list and more information, visit PressBoxOnline.com/toy drive.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Glory Days Grill's Oktoberfest menu is now running. It's one of their most popular seasonal menus all year. It features the chicken schnitzel, the Oktoberfest Brewers platter, the Brewers sausage sandwich, the Bavarian burger with a pretzel bun, the cheddar ale soup, the slam dunk pretzels, and the apple cobbler. All of these meals pair well with Oktoberfest beers and Angry Orchard on draft. Dine in or order online at glorydaysgrill.com and pick up your favorites to take home. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Have you been to Guilford Hall Brewery? Located in Baltimore's Station North neighborhood, Guilford Hall Brewery breaks the craft brew mold with their great handcrafted microbrews and amazing Bavarian-style food selections. Join Guilford Hall 7 days a week for Orioles, Ravens, and all of your favorite college games. Make plans now to watch the big games, play trivia, or bring your dog for Yappy Hour. They even have free valet service on Friday and Saturday nights. Go to guilfordhall.com for a complete schedule of events, beer listings, and food and drink specials. We'll see you at Guilford Hall Brewery.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, New Maryland basketball coach Kevin Willard sits down with Stan Charles and Glenn Clark to discuss the situation he inherited in College Park and how he plans to get the program turned around. Also, inside, we introduce you to men's and women's college basketball players from all of the teams in the area. And Bo Smoka profiles Ravens receiver Devin Duvernay. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Gotta love the Glenn Clark, the original Glenn Clark. Maybe not the original.
It really is like, this is top tier music.
It is.
This is
You know
top
what's
tier.
really great?
What?
Listen to the original theme of Power Rangers.
Okay.
Instrumental.
Good? Yeah?
It's like hardcore, like rock. It's
really
awesome. I could totally get myself amped up while working out if that came on my playlist. Anyway, time for Take the Rake. Take the Rake is brought to you by, Press Box's Glenn Clark Radio, which is a definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports. Watch the show every weekday from 10 to noon at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or facebook.com/PressBoxSports, Or if you can't watch, listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio with podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. You never know, Zachary Goodman, who might pop up on GCR. This week, the guys caught up with all of the area college basketball coaches, including Maryland's Kevin Willard, Coppin State's Juan Dixon, and Towson's Pat Scarry. Find those interviews and this week's Tyus Bowser Show with special guest Chuck Clark in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature at PressBoxOnline.com. Chuck Clark, Glenn Clark, any relation? Probably not.
Probably not, but you never know.
Probably not. It's time for the final take to rake of the year. I took JT Realmuto. Zach took Bryce Harper. Realmuto. 1 for 17. No walks, no homers, no RBIs, 11 strikeouts, and 059, 059, 059, 118 slash line.
That's
Zach
raking.
took Bryce Harper. 2 for 12. Home run, 2 RBIs, 3 walks, 4 hit by pitch. 3 walks, 1 hit by pitch, 4 Ks, a 167 batting average, but 375 on base percentage, 500 slugging, 875 OPS. Zach wins the final installment of Take to Rake of the 2022 season, and we have final standings.
Oh, do we?
I went through this yesterday.
I was going to help you out with that.
Ben McDonald did not have the first guest win, as we had originally thought.
Okay.
When I went through every episode. It took me about an hour and 20 minutes yesterday.
Whew.
Zach took Trey Mancini that week and beat out Ben's selection of Cedric Mullins. So Zach actually got the extra win that he didn't know he had in that segment. There were 3 guest victories by Bob Phelan, Connor Newcomb, and Ryan Blake.
Okay.
And they all occurred within 5 weeks of each other, within 5 shows.
Wow.
Bob won with Adley Rutschman, whom he took on the June 11th show. Connor won with Cedric Mullins, whom he took on the June 25th show when we had a 3-week break in the action while PressBox changed studios.
Yep.
So then we had the July 16th show. And then we had Ryan Blake on in your stead while you were away. I believe you were in the Outer Banks or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
For the July 23rd show. And Ryan won with Adley, who we took filling in for Zach on the July 23rd show. So in the span of 5 shows, our guest won 3 times.
Wow.
And then apparently we just stopped letting our guests play. I
Yeah.
don't remember. Like, we didn't actively decide to do that. It just kind of was a thing where we were like, you know what?
Well,
we really like doing Orioles banter and talking Orioles baseball and we've never done this show when the Orioles were good. So we decided to start having our guest on in the right around 11:05 so that we could have as much time to talk about the Orioles as we wanted to take to end the show. So with that in mind, we have our final standings.
I think it's going to be closer than I thought it was, but we'll see. Oh, man.
Take to Rake champion of the world, Paul Valley.
That's crazy. You sure you didn't...
in the regular season, and I must have thought that you were whooping my butt because...
I was.
Because
at one point.
No, you never were.
Really?
You never were. At one point, you went up by 2 victories.
Okay.
At one point.
Okay.
For the regular season, I won 9 times.
Mm-hmm.
You won 8 times.
Wow. That's
Guests
close.
had 3 victories, and we had 3 ties.
Mm-hmm.
In the postseason, I won twice. You won once this past week. Overall, Paul, me, 11 wins. Zach, 9. Guests, 3 with 3 ties. It's the closest take to rake we've ever had. And if you had answered the phone when we did take to rake while you were playing in your golf tournament.
Right. Yeah, wasn't allowed.
If you had even won then, you still wouldn't have beaten me. No, it may have been a tie. We may have had a tie.
It could have been. Yeah, well, if it was 11-9, then yeah.
It could have been a tie. It could have been a tie.
Mm-hmm.
But Ryan was the fill-in for you, so his pick counted as your pick. So we will never know. What I do know is I am a 3-time defending, reigning, undisputed take-to-rake champion of the world, and I have a surprise.
Oh, yeah? He has a surprise. I was going to make a... Oh, I see this. Okay, so I was wondering what that was the entire time, but now I guess I know.
I made this last night.
Wow.
This is kind of a piece of crap.
Here, throw it over here. I'll put it in front of the camera. I got the camera right here. So
I'm not going to throw it.
Well, you're not going to throw it, of course.
But I made this last night.
We do have to show this to everyone because it is a significant piece of the Bet Around. So we have what looks like Adam Jones here. It's Miguel Tejada, but it's number 10, and it looks like Adam Jones. But this is the Take the Rake trophy, apparently.
I have a camera also.
You do,
but yours is
mine is much closer. So this is I don't. Wow, you really went all out on this.
Yeah, I the Q-tip. I didn't expect it to kind of bend like that. I made the rake out of toothpicks. It was a very
the rake. Yeah.
It was a very frustrating build.
See,
because I used Gorilla Glue so it would stay together. And it kept...
the tape is great.
Well, yeah, because it was an old base sign, and it said Miguel Tejada. Did you read the bottom?
I did, yeah. I did.
The
20, 21, and 22. If we can put that right up at the camera here.
Yes. Take to Rake, Paul Valley, champion in 20, 21, and 22.
Well, you get your own Miguel Tejada bobblehead.
No, we're gonna leave it here.
We're gonna leave it here.
We're gonna leave the Take to Rake trophy. Okay. It's not Miguel Tejada, despite what it says on this jersey. It is the Take to Rake trophy.
Right. Okay. It is sure.
That's a quality rake that
I built. Is this supposed to be you?
It's just supposed to be an Orioles.
Got it. But that makes sense.
Look at that. Look at the quality of that rake.
Yeah, man.
That is a quality build.
What is this? What did you make that? Toothpicks?
Toothpicks.
Wow.
I took 5 toothpicks and I snapped them into 2/3 size.
Yeah.
And then spread them out using one of the broken toothpicks to kind of spread them out. Very frustrating, especially when the Gorilla Glue got on my fingertips and then the pieces of toothpick were sticking to my fingers as I'm trying to lay them out. I was ready to throw the Tejada bobblehead through the window from the 3rd floor.
I had no idea he was number 10. Never knew that.
Yeah, but I have a Miguel Tejada jersey.
That's cool.
On opening day 2008, and when I say opening day, it was the first baseball game of the year. It was the Nationals opening their new stadium.
Oh, right.
And I sat there because Tejada wasn't with the Orioles anymore.
Yeah.
And Adam Jones was, and it was his first year, and he was going to wear number 10. I sat there the entire game unstitching Tejada from the back of that Orioles jersey. So now I have a black Orioles number 10 jersey. I never got Jones put on there, but it was a Miguel Tejada jersey, and now there's just no name on it. And I do have an orange Adam Jones jersey, but
I guess we'll see if there's another number 10. I don't know what they're going to do about that.
I don't. There hasn't been.
I
there
doubt
hasn't
it.
been in 5 years.
Yeah,
right.
I doubt it.
So let's see, 19, 20, 21, 22. There hasn't been in 4 seasons since Jones left.
That's 2 great Orioles to wear it back to back, though.
Yeah,
like 2 really significant Orioles. By the way, Adam, we should try to have Adam on the show because he does have that new show with Jerry Coleman.
I've been thinking about that.
Yeah.
I've wanted to get Adam on the show. I guess I have to reach out to the people and get contact information. But I do plan on having Adam on the show.
He's got a new podcast with Jerry Coleman, which I really want to listen to. I haven't gotten the chance yet, but I think that's probably going to be really good. Those 2 guys have always had a great back and forth. Jerry Coleman is a good back and forth with everyone. Like John Harbaugh, he had a great back and forth with over the years. So that's going to be a fun pod to listen to.
Jerry Coleman gets a lot of crap in this area, and if I knew Jerry Coleman,
he's hilarious.
Behind
I'll be
the
honest.
scenes, and I really enjoyed Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry was he was tough on me when I was producing for him because he had to have everything just so. But he treated me with respect. He was always super kind to me when we, and just he was a good guy to me, and he was a nice guy. And like you said, he was funny.
Yeah.
So I win Take the Rake 3 years running now. Zach is trying to get his first victory in the 2023 season.
That's rough.
I really thought he was beating me.
I did too.
I really thought that you were. And when I saw the final results, I was like, oh my God.
We should have stopped the count after week 1, honestly.
Well, there was a tie. Week 1 was a tie.
Was it a tie?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Because we neither I think
so we just should have stopped it whenever I started winning. That would have been fair.
Mullins and Mountcastle legitimately both went like 1 for 4 week 1. And we were both like neither one of them raked because whatever. I think they both struck out multiple times. But there was a point where I think that it was legitimately back and forth. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There was a point when you went up like I want to say it was like 6-4.
Okay.
And then I'm looking, and I think the highest lead you have is like 6-5. I think it was like 6-5, and then I went on a little bit of a run there to close the season. So yeah, this was surprising for me, but I'm glad to have won. The Bet Around with Paul Valley just isn't the same if I'm not the Take the Rake champion. Final thoughts, I guess because I am the champion, I get to go first. You know what? The champion will be a gracious champion, and I will allow you to go first since you won the final week of Take to Rake.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my final thought, I haven't put too much thought into my final thought, but I want to reiterate something I've kind of been talking about a lot, and that's I want Major League Baseball, and I know they can't do a lot because they do have the new CBA in place right now, but I want them just to review some of these rules and changes that they're going to make. I've talked about blackouts. I've talked about trying to get the youth more involved, trying to get marketing more. The youths. Trying to get marketing to be a bigger part of the MLB business structure. I would like Major League Baseball to figure a lot of these things out and come back with a better plan next year as to how to get people more involved, more interactive with baseball. It feels like we have a long offseason to do it. Last offseason, it was all about the CBA, and that was everything was their focus as far as the CBA goes. You have a whole offseason right now to figure out how to make this sport one that is more, I guess, inclusive, but also more interactive and more exciting for fans. And I think that's a really big opportunity. You look at what the NFL has done, you look at what the NBA has done, and they've taken a commanding lead in that category.
Mm-hmm.
And I think baseball has a real opportunity now to start to appeal to more people and become a more inclusive and more exciting sport for everyone. And I think that's a really big thing that's going to happen. And I think they have the opportunity right now to do that.
Yeah, I think it's very important. They are so bad at marketing.
They are.
They're young talent, and I think that's something that they really need to focus on. But I think that's always going to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that
it's possible.
But they have a long way to go. I think they have a long way to go. But it would be nice to see them start taking steps in that direction. Hey, look, they banned the shift. And
sure did.
I'm super excited about that. So if they were willing to ban the shift, maybe they'll be willing to do some other things too. For me, my final thought, I'm really glad that Connor kind of offered a bit of an eye-opening or an awakening for me when it comes to Brandon Hyde and Mike Elias and how they were running the team this past year. Because I do agree that Mike Elias didn't see this coming from this team. And the comments at the trade deadline, that made it abundantly clear that he didn't expect this team to be in contention. And even when they were in contention, he didn't expect it to last. And the fact that it did caught him off guard. Right. I think that he fully expected the Orioles to be a last-place team again this year, and then when they were good, he still fully expected them to miss the playoffs. And ultimately they did. And I think that a lot of us, if we were really checking ourselves, probably didn't expect them to make the playoffs even when they were in contention. But the lineup decisions made me start to pull my hair out, right? And I was constantly an old man yelling at a cloud. And I was blaming Brandon Hyde. And I think that Connor gave the best and most logical explanation in that Brandon Hyde's allowed to make his lineups, but they had a plan in place for guys like Vavra and guys like Stowers, where we're going to bring you up to get a taste of the big league action in competitive baseball in August, and then you're going to get your real playing time the last month of the season. And then the Orioles were still in it.
Right.
And so Brandon Hyde, and so Elias said to Hyde, look, we wanted you to play these guys, but we're still in it.
Right.
If you're more comfortable playing your veterans and you think that they can handle the situation better, you don't want to expose your rookies to that, then by all means do that. And so I think that Connor's right, that's probably the conversation they had, and that Hyde was given the go-ahead to play those guys, and that's what he saw fit, that he saw putting veterans in a situation, in a tough situation like that was better than putting his rookies in there. So I'm willing to take a step back from the Hyde criticisms here and say that was probably and likely the case. But he doesn't get a free pass from me. He gets okay, then I want to see what you do this coming season. Now, I have made my New Year's resolution is that I'm going to try and be less negative about, because there are people who think that I'm completely negative about all Baltimore sports teams, and I promise you I'm not. I promise you I'm not, and I talked about this a lot. But with better teams, better talent, comes greater expectations. So my expectations are that this Orioles team should be competing for a playoff spot next year. And if I see lineups, if I see certain things that prevent them from winning ball games, I think should be one, or decisions in game that are costing them ball games, I'm not going to be quiet. You're
going to call it out.
I'm going to call it out, and that's my job. That's why I have this show, is because I'm not afraid to call.
It's a critical analysis.
Yeah, it's not I hate the Orioles and I hate Brandon Hyde. It's you need to do better because this team's good enough to go somewhere. So, I'm going to try and be less negative. I'm not going to stop myself from expressing my opinion, but I am willing to take a step back from my Brandon Hyde slander, if you will, and give him the opportunity with better talent and with whatever acquisitions they get this offseason, and see what he can do with a really talented playoff-ready team next year. So before we go, I really thought we were going to get out of here earlier today, and we just never do. Ravens, Monday night, taking on the Saints. They just acquired all-world linebacker Roquan Smith.
Yeah.
And then we get the news 2 days later that Rashad Bateman is out for the year, having Liz Frank surgery on his foot. I will never get excited about a Ravens draft a wide receiver again until they give me reason to be excited. Because even with Bateman, I was like, why do I need to be excited about this guy? Because nobody else has ever panned out. And people are like, oh, he's this, he's that. And no, he's not. He's not on the field. And
well, I think Bateman, when healthy, is a very, very good wide receiver.
He is, but he hasn't been healthy his entire career.
Yeah.
And when he was healthy, he had 3 critical drops in that game against the Bills, in a game that the Ravens had a double-digit fourth-quarter lead, and they lost. They should have won that game, and if he catches even one of those 3 passes, they probably do win that game.
Yeah.
So my excitement for a wide receiver, unless it's signed in free agency, I'm never going to have it again. You're going to have to prove it to me, and I need more proof than you were just drafted in the first round. That being said, you're hearing a lot of people say that this could be a tough game for the Ravens because the Saints go down and score points. Every game's tough for the Ravens because they're the Ravens, but I think the Ravens have found their offensive identity. We saw it in the second half against the Buccaneers, and I'm looking at the Ravens to go in there, run the hell out of the ball with a strong offensive line. You're not going to have Gus Edwards or Mark Andrews. I think that even if they were healthy enough to play, I still don't think they'd play because you have the bye coming up. A lot of Kenyon Drake, a lot of Justice Hill.
Yeah.
And you're going to see Mike Davis get carries too. A lot of Duvernay touches, I'm thinking. And I expect the Ravens and a lot of scrambles from Lamar. I expect the Ravens to go down into New Orleans. It won't be easy, but I'm calling Ravens 24, New Orleans 17.
Okay. I think Roquan is going to be a massive addition to this team because you look at the middle linebacker position for the Ravens, and ever since Ray Lewis left in 2012, or retired in 2012, they've really struggled to replace it. C.J. Mosley was fine, but he was often injured, number one, and then he didn't really last all that long after he left and walked and signed with the Jets in free agency.
And he wasn't great in coverage.
And he wasn't really that good in coverage. He was a run stopper, right? And then you look at Patrick Queen, who's kind of been the replacement there. After the Ravens signed Bynes and Fort off the street the year prior, they drafted Patrick Queen. He's kind of been into the, thrown into the fire, I guess you should say, and there's been a lot of expectation around him. And he hasn't really become what we thought Patrick Queen could become. The athleticism's there, but he's got to get better. He still has to get better in a lot of scenarios and ways.
Moving him to the weak side and
it helped a lot.
That's where he's going to be now with Roquan in the fold, and he's going to have an opportunity to get after the pass rusher, use that athleticism. I think he's going to be better.
No doubt. And now you add in Roquan Smith, and you're getting a guy who is a proven leader. Right now, he's leading the NFL in tackles. He's productive year after year, and he's played very, very a great number of games, which indicates that he's a pretty healthy player over a period of time. So that's going to be extremely helpful for the Ravens, having a middle linebacker with leadership, a middle linebacker who knows what he's doing back there. That's such a big deal for them. So that trade, excellent. You're getting Bowser back. That's going to be a huge deal for them. I don't like that Mark Andrews is not there because Lamar Jackson loves Mark Andrews, and they have a great connection, and that's why Mark Andrews is one of the best tight ends in football. But Bateman, it's a big loss. It's a really big loss because he really opens up a whole new identity for this offense when he's on the field. So it's hard to see him go down, and especially against the Saints defense that has some really good pieces. It's some of the better middle linebackers they're going to face all year on that Saints defense. I think this one's going to be a close one. I'm going to go 28-24 Baltimore.
Okay.
In a close one.
Likely stepped up huge.
Yeah, it looks great.
Without Andrews.
Yeah.
So that could be another thing. And you mentioned Bateman opens another facet for this offense.
Yeah.
He's basically been a non-factor since week 3.
He has, but when he's on, I mean, you saw what he did in the Jets game week 1, and you saw him against Miami. He played really well.
I mean, they beat the Buccaneers without him, and they beat the Browns basically with. I mean, he had 4 catches, but they were like short.
Nothing big.
He was basically a non-factor in that game, and they should have beaten the Giants basically without him. Same thing against Cincinnati, and same thing against and the game against the Patriots that they won. I mean, he dropped 3 passes against the Bills,
right?
And they should have won that game. And he was he's not the sole reason, but he's one of the reasons that he didn't win that game. And against the Patriots, he had 2 catches, and on one of them he fumbled. So to me, Bateman, aside from the first 2 weeks of the year, has been a non-factor for this offense.
Fair.
Andrews is the big loss. But Isaiah likely stepped up huge when it mattered most last time, and I expect to see him do the same. So that's going to do it for us on the Bat Around. Thank you to Todd Kalas from AT&T Sports Net, Astros play-by-play man, for joining us to talk some World Series today. Thank you to Connor Newcomb from the Locked On Orioles podcast to join us for Orioles Banter. A lot of great content there. And thanks, as always, to Stan the Fan Charles for his weekly segment. Always enjoys talking baseball with Stan. Guys, enjoy the rest of the World Series. Get ready, because the offseason and the Orioles frenzy, hopefully, in free agency and in trades, is about to get